Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a great show today, folks. I am excited to have our guest on today. You may have seen him on TV. You may have seen him either on NewsNation recently. You may have seen him on 2020, Good Morning America. He's made a national name for himself. However, he started off in Southern California, breaking his bones, so to speak, or making his bones in the prosecutorial category, homicide prosecutor. Also did some sexual assault prosecuting in Southern California. Boy, when you want to talk about getting into it deep and getting into some of the biggest markets in the country and trying to deal with some cases that will make your hair curl, Matt Murphy has gotten into it with some of the most gruesome cases that you can imagine. We're going to talk about some of them today. He's got a wonderful new book out there called The Book of Murder, A Prosecutor's Journey Through Love and Death. And let me tell you a little bit about Matt before we bring him on today. He's a former homicide prosecutor, current legal analyst for ABC News. He spent more than 2 decades assigned to the sexual assault and homicide units of the Orange County District Attorney's Office, where he tried some of the most compelling murder cases in America. During his long tenure in homicide, he prosecuted cold cases, famous serial killers, no-body murders, and many more. Now in private practice, he regularly appears as legal analyst on national television shows, including 2020, Good Morning America, and various programs on Hulu. He's a mainstay on iCrime with Elizabethvargas and her evening news program, where he offers his insight on murder cases across the country. Matt volunteers his time helping survivors of sexual assault navigate the confusing and often overwhelming criminal justice system. A native of Southern California, he's an avid surfer, shark diver, and novice painter. When not in the courtroom, he can often be found on, under, or in waves near his beloved home of Manhattan Beach. Let's welcome in to True Crime Tuesday for the first time, Matt Murphy. Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Just on a side note, I know before the show, privately between you and I got my Viking sweatshirt on today. I'm a little proud of it. We were talking fantasy football, so I didn't throw that in the bio, but I had to throw that in as well. So I want to,
and I have the Vikings quarterback Darnold on my fantasy team.
It's
I hope that doesn't alienate any of your Green Bay fans. But
no. I don't think there's very many. I think I've alienated them plenty over the years on the show. So it's appreciated that you put Darnold on the team. First of all, I want to tip my hat about this book. Wonderful book. Although if I can lead off with this, I want to lead off with something a little personal. You do point out in the book that being a DA is a bit of a lonely lifestyle, and working in the DA's office is a bit of a lonely lifestyle. I have to ask you this, because I think we share this in common. Being behind this microphone is a little bit of a lonely lifestyle as well. You do have to separate yourself a lot of times when you're going for the career away from personal stuff. And you do have to kind of eschew a bit of a personal lifestyle sometimes in order to pursue the career. Why is it in your field that you have to not necessarily get involved in a personal life? Why is it that you have to take yourself so much out of thinking, well, wife, kids, family? Why does that take a back burner to your career?
For me, there were people in the unit that were great at that balance. Some of the people I worked with were wonderful fathers and husbands and wives in the time that they were in the unit. Like they had that ability to sort of like compartmentalize their life, and I envy that because I was never really able to do that. You're on call 24/7. So I was in homicide for 17 years, and the way it works in Orange County, it's a little different than the way most DA's offices operate. In almost all prosecutorial agencies, the way it works is the police investigate something and they put together a big stack of, reports, and they put it on one DA's desk who reviews it for the filing of charges. And then another one will do the indictment in front of the grand jury or the preliminary hearing. And then still somebody else will do the pretrial. And then it'll finally wind up on the desk a year or two later of the trial lawyer who's going to actually be responsible for presenting it. Orange County is different. Orange County is what's known as a vertical system. So for the specialized units, which are like gangs, sexual assault, homicide, um, you get a patch of the county. So my cities were Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, Laguna Beach, and Irvine. And I was assigned to any murder that happened in those cities, or really any homicide. Anytime a human being kills another, and sometimes it's not a murder, we would roll out in the middle of the night I'd go out with my investigator, sometimes even my paralegal and my team, and be there to assist, in obtaining warrants, and really working the case from the very, very beginning, and oftentimes before the body was even transported to the coroner's office. And what that does, the philosophy is if a prosecutor is there from the very beginning, number one, you have a much better opportunity to sort of influence the direction of the investigation. You don't supervise it, but you're there to offer helpful advice. And when you do that with the same agency over and over again, you tend to develop a relationship of confidence and trust with the detectives. Mm-hmm. So sometimes if they're going to make a mistake that could potentially impact the constitutional rights of a criminal defendant, you can be there to steer them in the right direction or get them off of that road, which preserves the integrity of the case. And then you decide as the prosecutor what charges are filed, when there's enough evidence, against whom involved in the case. And then first thing I would always do is meet with the victim's family and kind of explain, number one, the process and what they can expect. But I would also give them my personal cell number. For those cities, I never regretted doing that. And that way the victim's family knows that there are people, and not just me, but my team, that really cared about the case. They cared about them. And so when it comes to a personal life, I got pretty into that. And at any given point, I would be, I'd carry a case out of up to 25 murders. So that's, give or take, that's 25 different mothers and fathers, or wives or husbands that, had experienced the worst thing somebody can, and that's the murder of a loved one. And I wish I was better at balancing a personal life with that, but I talk about this in the book. I was really into it, and I wasn't necessarily a devoted romantic partner during most of that time. I was kind of terrible at that. And I had a weird experience right at the beginning of my tenure in Homicide, where I was dating somebody that kind of cheated on me. And I sort of had one of these moments where it was like, you know what? I'm just going all in on the work. And for me, I was never smart enough, like some of my colleagues, to be able to achieve excellence at the highest level of, prosecution, and also excellence in a personal life. So I just kind of went all in on the work. And I
think some people don't realize, though, in order to be excellent at what you do, and in order to serve the public at your highest level, there are some things you do have to sacrifice. And unfortunately, that is the name of the game. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, the last serial killer trial I did was a guy named Andrew Urdialis. And that trial, we were in actual trial and for 6 months. So imagine, it's almost like finals in high school or college, that period of time where there just isn't enough time in the day to get all the work done that you need to do. And, that's what it's like for 6 months. Well, trying to balance all those other murders and other responsibilities in the office. So it took pretty much all I could give it. And also you learn pretty quickly as a prosecutor that the difference between achieving justice, which is winning the case, like convicting the person you've charged for what you have determined are the correct charges, and defeat, where a victim's mother is further brokenhearted because the person that murdered their loved one has gotten away with it. It can be pretty razor thin sometimes. And especially for me, the difference on the surface, watching somebody try a case that is, a dedicated professional versus somebody who's an obsessed, fanatical sort of like devotee of the discipline, of the forensic science, of the law, of, the craft of actually trying cases. They can look almost exactly the same in a courtroom, but the one um, that is obsessive about following the law and doing everything within the strict ethics of the law and your responsibilities as a prosecutor, it's really thin. And that, it's almost like we talk about the 2 o'clock in the morning example, because every trial, there's a moment at 2 a.m. and you got to be at the podium at 9, which for me, where I lived, I had a pretty long commute. So I got to be up no later than probably 5:30 or 6 when I'm in trial. And, 2 a.m, you're balancing how, am I going to be a zombie because I've gotten no sleep versus reading that one extra article with the defense expert witness where you just might find that one nugget that turns the whole case. And, when you actually physically see the person in the ditch or dead on the kitchen floor or on the autopsy table, and then you meet that person's mom or dad or, widowed wife or husband, it motivates you to read that one more article, and
Right.
and for me, it took kind of all I could give it, and we had a lot of success as a result of that. But it probably would have been healthier if I'd chosen another profession. But I wouldn't trade a thing.
And understandable. You also mentioned in the book that being that you're from Southern California, one of the ways that you get away, one of the ways you recharge is by surfing, which I thought was really, really cool. Is it something you still partake in? Do you still do?
When I'm in Manhattan Beach, pretty much every morning, if we're dealing with some crazy fog, like the shoulder seasons in Southern California, we get this thing called the marine layer that socks us in, and I'm a lot less motivated in my old age when it's gloomy and cold outside. But we just had a streak, a couple weeks ago where we had beautiful, sunny, like late summer days, and I was in the water every morning. And I still do that. You can probably tell by the sun damage. I got the sun damage to prove it. But yeah, lots of surfing. Just the last since COVID, I got back into scuba diving. I've been scuba diving since I was 12.
Really?
But that also is a great distraction that really balances things out. And there's a couple places in Mexico that I've been going, and in fact, I got a trip coming up to Cuba where you go and you do these cageless shark dives. And I will tell you what, it is as zen as you can possibly be when you're down at 50 feet with an apex predator and it's swimming up to you, and it's like, is this thing checking me out, or is he about to open its mouth? You are thinking about nothing else, and it's wonderful for my mental health. Kind of the same thing with surfing, but a little more, maybe a little more intense with that, with the tank on your back. But I love that too. So anything I can do around water or the ocean, it really, really helps me a lot.
So Matt, wait a minute. Are we subbing now serial killers and murderers for sharks? I mean, is there a reason why we're subbing out one danger for another, or is
Well, you know what? Sharks are funny thing about sharks is that they're innocent. There's a difference between when you're in a courtroom with a serial killer, they love to represent themselves. It's one of the things they love to collect trophies, and they love to represent themselves. And I think it's that they can't resist the ability to control others. I think so. Ted Bundy did it. Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer, who's one of mine, he did that. And, I had to deal with him, as you know, if you read the book, face to face every day for about 6 months when we were, in the pretrial and trial phases of that case. And, they are not innocent, those guys. They're presumed innocent legally, but, they are some really scary people. And sharks, on the other hand, kind of get a bad rap, and when you're down there, especially if you're not chumming, if you're just down there sharing the water with them, right, they tend to be very mellow, and you're not on the menu, and they really do get kind of a bad rap. I donate to some environmental organizations every year dedicated to saving them because they're an important part of the ecosystem. But man, when you're diving with them, it is something else. But I had a funny story I'll share with you. I haven't shared this publicly before, but my very first death penalty case was a guy named Victor Miranda Guerrero. And it was in front of this fantastic judge who just passed away named Francisco Briseño. And it's my first, we called them DPs. And this guy was a very prolific serial rapist who was active in Huntington Beach. I talk about this a little bit in the book. And he finally, his technique was he would follow women who'd been drinking home from the bar scene in Huntington, and he'd get them in a position of vulnerability, and he'd basically knock them out and rape them where they lay, right? So that's his technique. So predictably, he went up, one of these women died of this because of traumatic brain injury. And all the same bells and whistles of every good serial killer. He collected jewelry as trophies. He had a little trophy case when we got into his stuff. But he, you know, that trial also was very long. And the defense lawyer is a good guy named Don Rubright, very experienced public defender, good man, good lawyer. And I was taking jacuzzis. I got a spa in my backyard, and I was doing that to just chill out every night, to just try to balance, right? And there was a black widow web underneath the steps, and I had to pull the steps out for some reason. And we get those in California. It's a desert spider, and they're native. And it was gigantic, and I put it in a Trader Joe's like cookie container, because I'm kind of a nerd, as you're probably guessing, and I wanted to check it out, right? And it's like, ooh, creepy, and I hadn't seen a black widow in a long time, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And I'm a put the spider outside guy, like I don't like to kill bugs, as funny as that may sound, considering I put multiple people on death row. But so I punch holes in it. And I put some like leaves and stuff in it. I go the next day and I'm telling the bailiff, I'm like, so I don't really know what to do with it. I got, I don't want to just kill it, but I can't like keep it as a pet, and I don't want to let it go because I got 2 6-year-old twins who live next door. And so from across the courtroom, the jury's not in yet. I hear this, "You've got to be kidding me." And I'm like, what? And it's Rubright, the public defender. And I'm like, what, Don, what's up? Because I said, "You got to be kidding me." He goes, "You're over there and you're having a moral dilemma over squashing a poisonous bug." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "For the last 13 weeks, you've been trying to kill my human client." And it's like, hey, Don, the spider's innocent, buddy. Your client is not innocent. So
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, I love I love shark diving. And yeah, anything I can do to get in the ocean, I'm doing.
Well, and to expound on that point, the spider does what it does because it's nature.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
The killer did what it did out of choice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And out of desire to achieve fun, which is what serial killers are really motivated by. And it makes a lot of people uncomfortable to say that. But they are, we all saw Silence of the Lambs. I talk about this a little bit in the book. And when I got to Homicide, I thought serial killers were like Buffalo Bill or maybe Hannibal Lecter, right? Like genius psychiatrist who's killing and eating people, or the guy that wants to kill the women of Buffalo Bill and wear their skin because he wants to metamorphosize. The truth is, I think those were loosely based on real people, but the truth is the real serial killers they're sexually motivated, and a lot of them are not victims of horrific childhood abuse. They're not the creepy guy in the van. They are people like Rex Heuermann, and he's presumed innocent, of course, but that's the Go-Go Beach killer, whose case is progressing now in New York. And that guy ran his own architecture firm in Midtown Manhattan. He's married, successful business guy, smart dude, no sign of abuse in his childhood. Ted Bundy was not abused as a child. Rodney Alcala was not abused as a child, and it's kind of this sort of archetype that we think of, and it's almost like a human defense mechanism for ourselves. I think we want to be able to understand, why somebody would do that, or what, air quotes here, would make somebody do that. So we really almost want to psychologically buy into this myth of childhood abuse. And the truth is that it's far scarier than that. They do it because they love doing it. It's sexually motivated. They enjoy it. And once they're done killing somebody, they can't wait to go and do it again. So they're the person who could be in front of you in line at a Costco, and you would never know it. Those are the serial killers. That's why Jack the Ripper got away with it for so long. That's why BTK killer, he's like a leader in his church, and he was married and had kids, and like it's the person you don't expect. The creepy guy in the van is pretty easy to spot. The truth is, the most successful serial killers are, I think that's why they never caught Jack the Ripper, because he could walk out of those scenes and blend perfectly right into Whitechapel, London in the 1880s. So it's scarier, but I think it's even more fascinating.
It is, yeah. And you're right. They can flip that switch very quickly and go from abnormal to normal and charming at that. And it's one of those things where you're shocked at how charming they truly can be. Let's before we go to break, let's talk a little bit about Rodney Alcala. You know, it's one of those. And by the way, before we jump onto Rodney Alcala here, I'll let you know here, Matt. Just for you, the audience already knows this. I have trained wild chipmunks in my yard, so I have five of them. So I'm an animal guy too. They 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 all have names that I feed them, and I'm a
Love
little
it.
eccentric like that too. So there you go. You're not the only guy out there. Uh, uh, so Rodney Alcala is a subject we've talked about here in the past, and our audience knows him as the dating game killer, of course. Um, he's an interesting specimen in that, you know, you know the story probably much more intimately than our audience does, but starts out taking pictures of women on the beaches, correct? There in Southern California.
That was part of his shtick, if you will. It was part of his method of luring people into positions of vulnerability. He did beaches. He really liked the beach, but he cruised the Hollywood Strip in the late '60s and early '70s, looking for people, sort of the same thing. And he was a graduate of the UCLA Film School, so he was a real professional photographer. He was trained how to do it by the very best, and he would find young women, and that was part of his thing. It's like, hey, you're gorgeous. You could be a model. Let me take pictures of you. You know, hey, let's do some semi-nude stuff, but let's do it in private. And he was caught in 1968 for he kidnapped and raped an 8-year-old girl named Tally Shapiro in Hollywood in 1968, and they got into his apartment. They didn't catch him for a couple more years, but he had hundreds and hundreds of photos of young girls, young women, young boys in positions of vulnerability in the wilderness, in the woods, in rooms alone with him. And then years later, when he was arrested again in 1979, they found a whole new batch of hundreds and hundreds of photos of the same thing: young women, young boys, young girls in positions of vulnerability. We identified, I don't know, about half of those people, and a lot of them got out of those situations for whatever reasons, but some of them turned out later to be his victims. So fascinating case for sure.
Very fascinating. I want to ask you a quick question about your actual interaction with Rodney Alcala. I know you mentioned in the book that you found him, and you were also partnered up with another person, and you would kind of play good cop, bad cop with him as far as prosecution goes, when you were trying to work things out with him on because he wanted to represent himself when you were going after him, correct?
Oh, and he did represent himself. Ultimately, he was the trial attorney in his own case. And there's an old adage: the the person who represents himself as a fool for a lawyer and a jackass for a client. Which thank God for that. But a lot of them, Ted Bundy did the same thing. And again, I think it's that psychopath mindset where the idea that they have the power of subpoena, and they can choose to call people to the stand, and they almost can't resist. And another thing that's a little disturbing is they also get what's called discovery. They get the evidence, which in Alcala's case included a bunch of essentially what amounts to homemade pornography that he got to have in his cell with him, which included the bodies of several women that he murdered. And then we're convinced he took photographs of their dead bodies, because a lot of their bodies were found posed. And we never found that cache, but it was pretty obvious to everybody that that's what he was doing.
Wow. So I want to ask you this, Matt. What was because you got to play good cop to your partner's bad cop with him at times, so you got to form a bit of a bit of a, I don't want to say bond with him, because that doesn't seem right, but you got to get inside his mind a little bit. So let me ask you this: what was the most fascinating thing you found about Rodney Alcala? And what was the most frightening thing you found?
Well, so let me start that by saying Anna Kendrick has a new movie coming out. I think it gets released this week, called Woman of the Hour, and it's based on the Rodney Alcala case. And I'll tell you, man, I met the actor who played Rodney Alcala, and I've gotten to preview the movie. He is so good at doing, essentially playing the guy that I got to know, because I had to deal with him every day. And what we decided to do, because they're called pro pers, a pro per defendant, that means it's Latin for essentially representing themselves. And they can gum up the gears of the process so badly. unless you have, especially if you're fighting with them constantly. So whenever somebody represents themselves, you have an obligation ethically as a lawyer to treat them professionally. As abhorrent as they may be to you, you've got to treat them professionally, and you have to essentially assist them to a degree in getting through the process. And when you're fighting with somebody like that, it literally can destroy the efficacy of the case, and it can destroy the appellate process, and that's terrible for victims' families. So, as a professional, you, on one hand, you got to suck it up and do your job, which is professionally dealing with this person who's representing themselves. But on an interpersonal level, I was so fascinated by trying to get into his head, because I wanted to know sort of what makes him tick, and I had serial rapists. I had a guy named Douglas Hopper who did the same thing, and it's the same mindset. The difference between a serial rapist and a serial murderer who rapes his victims, they're the same exact guy. One gets off on killing and the other, for whatever reason, doesn't. But it's the same thing. They collect their trophies. They're clever. They're prolific. They're incredibly sadistic and cruel. So the last serial rapist I did, I wanted to know. I mean, I engaged him in conversation, the trial's over. I've been nice to you. What is it? What makes you tick? And I engaged Alcala sort of in the same way. And, it worked very well because procedurally we had to get through all these days, and somebody had to be nice to him. And my trial partner, Gina Satriano, who I love, she was from the LADA's office. We had to strategize that out. And I was like, and we had to tell him no a dozen times a day on some days, where crazy stuff that he would want regarding evidence or whatever that he wasn't necessarily entitled to, or some process or procedure or hearing that we were going to oppose. And which, of course, our job isn't to do his defense for him. Our job is to represent our client at the same time. So anyway, yeah, it was funny. It was like, hey, Gina was like, what do we do now that he's pro per? I don't want to talk to this guy. And I didn't blame her. And I'm like, well, let's do basically a good cop, bad cop thing. I'll be friendly with him, and every time we have to tell him no, I'll just blame you. And it worked. And but it was really interesting because there was one moment where we sentenced a really scary guy in Orange County to death row. He was a totally different kind of murderer, and he was a white supremacist gang leader. And this guy was gnarly, like all the swastika tattoos. He was big, and he was a scary, murderous, really bad dude. And I didn't know, we had no training on death row or San Quentin or how it worked. So I didn't really know. And I asked Rodney one day, I'm like, hey man, and the jury was out and we're waiting for the judge. I'm like, doesn't it scare you when guys like that go up to death row? And I didn't know that they do an additional classification in San Quentin when they go to death row. They classify the dangerousness of the inmates because there's over 700 people on death row in California. None of them will ever be executed again, but they classify them. There's like medium risk, maximum risk, and then there's the least risk to staff and other inmates. And they named themselves the weenie yard because they divided up into yards because they each have a different yard in the prison. And I'm like, doesn't it scare you when guys like that go up? And he was actually offended. And he's like, Matt, he goes, you know me. He goes, I'm never going to see that guy. He's going to be on the heavy yard. I'm on the weenie yard. Come on. I'm not violent. Like, he was offended at the idea that I would think that he'd be in the same yard as a really scary, violent guy, because in his own mind, he wasn't violent. And this is a guy with a Mensa level IQ. He was in the 99th percentile of measured human intelligence. He grew up in a home where he was loved. His mother loved him to death. He had an aunt who was very involved in his life. His brother went to West Point, became a war hero in Vietnam. Like this guy was a varsity letterman at his high school, a well-regarded college prep school called Cantwell High School in East LA. He had girlfriends, he had friends, he had social success. He went to UCLA for undergrad, graduated from UCLA Film School. I mean, that is the classic American serial killer. He's the last guy you'd expect. He was charming. He was handsome for the day. And that was one of the things that was the most fascinating thing for me was we hear about these serial killer cases. And again, it's almost a psychological defense mechanism where you think, how did she get in the car with that guy? Because that's usually how they operate. We see, right. How did that woman get in the car with Ted Bundy? How did that woman get in the car with, Rex Heuermann with Go Beach, whoever it is. And then you meet one of these guys and you see how charming they are and how disarming that can be and how they make you laugh and they tell little jokes. And like it is fascinating. And then it's like, oh, that's why she got in the car. That's why, because he's charming and he laughs and he's funny and he's intelligent and knows all. And I mean, they're masters at manipulating other human beings. And so for me, that was a fascinating thing. It was a fascinating experience delving into the mind of a true serial killer. And it was icky, for lack of a better term. But like we were talking about spiders, like that Black Widow, I had that thing in basically a plastic jar, right? It's totally harmless. And Alcala was sort of the same thing. You know, he's in a controlled environment and he posed no risk to me or anybody else in the courtroom. And it's alone with him at night in a room in a house he's broken into. That's where that guy is going to be his true self.
Did you ever figure out what the trigger was between serial rapist and killer? What that small switch was that got one?
Oh, I think it's just that one of them, and number one, a lot of times the serial rapist, when they come in with the gun or the knife to the throat, they mean it, you know. And I had several of those that were prolific serial rapists with, like, I had one guy, James Schiff, who I don't talk about in the book, who, you know, maybe I'll write about him in the next one. That guy went in and he would bring a loaded firearm or a knife and he would kidnap women off the street. But his thing is he cruised around in the middle of the night looking for women alone in a house at night, or sometimes in a business. And he went into a business and he was trying to drag one of these women out, and she was there with her wife, who worked with her. And the wife came running in and he just friggin' casually dropped her and shot her in the head. And so it is, for a lot of those guys, it is, it's the difference between some of them get off on just the fear and the sadism, and some of them get off on the fear and the sadism and then going all the way into killing. And that's it. It's the sexual proclivity is the only difference between them. None of them have a moral compass that's broken. They all know that what they're doing is wrong. At least all the ones I dealt with, they know it's wrong. They just don't care, you know? And it's a fascinating thing. And there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of sort of pop misinformation out there about, which I address this a little bit in the book. I hope to do a deeper dive into my next one, which we're already working on. But the idea that, you know, one of the things you hear over and over again is they suffer from a quote unquote lack of empathy. And psychopaths do. They don't care about the feelings of other people. That's sort of the party line, if you will. Like, that's what you read over and over again. But that always struck me as being really weird, you know, because we're defining something that they have, which is like this burning desire to sadistically inflict pain and fear on other people, to a sexual end. Yeah. Versus, you know, we just don't have a name for that, really, you know. And we try to define that by saying, well, they have a lack of something else, you know. And some experts will even come in, and I talk about this in the book, some defense experts will come in and say a psychopath is just incapable of you know, understanding the suffering of other people. And, you know, can I swear on your show?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Right.
That's right.
They totally understand. They get off on it. It's not that they can't, that they are incapable, as if they're like born blind or something. They're born with every advantage. A lot of them are super intelligent, charming. It's just, they like it. They understand that person is suffering. They understand that's wrong, but it gives them a sexual gratification to do that. And that's why they do it. You know, so the current FBI definition of serial killer is 2 or more victims at different events committed by the same perpetrator, 2 or more murders in different events committed by the same perpetrator. That's roughly the definition of serial killer, according to the FBI, after symposia and all these. And, you know, no shade on the FBI. They've done a lot of really good work on trying to figure these guys out, but that's not what a serial killer is. You know, that is like that's a gangster who can shoot straight. That's a mercy killing nurse who is in a state where, you know, they ban assisted suicide. Like serial killers, the true blue serial killers, the archetype, they're raping their victims. You know, there's a sexual component of that. And I do a bit of a dive into this in the book. There's a 1880s textbook written by a guy named Dr. von Krafft-Ebing, who's a German contemporary of Sigmund Freud, who takes a really good run at trying to figure these guys out. And he puts them on a relational spectrum of paraphilias or sexual deviancy. And he labels them sadistic lust murders. And I think he's way closer to the mark. You know, our definition is so inclusive. You know, we're into that nowadays in America, which is a good thing in so many ways, but not when it comes to figuring out what makes these guys tick. And it's almost always men. You know, there are certainly others like Eileen Wuornos. And look, there are some people that become, you know, that kill multiple people because of childhood abuse. That certainly exists. But there's a different kind. The core of these are people that do it because they love it, because they get off on it. It's not based on abuse. It's because they enjoy it. And, you know, I think that we need to come to terms with that. And I think we need to go back to that Dr. von Krafft-Ebing definition of sadistic lust murders, because that really is a common thread that you see from, you know, the Green River Killer, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, Gilgo Beach, Andrew Urdiales case, Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer, you know, Richard Ramirez, the Golden State Killer, Joseph D'Angelo, which is another one of my cases. There is a sexual component to all of those. So I don't know. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm not criticizing anybody that's involved in the field of trying to figure them out. I just think we need to accept the fact that, you know, that these guys are basically serial rapists. And there's another thing too, not to rant too much on this, but you know, sometimes, especially in the era of modern forensics, we do catch these guys after their first murder. You know, I had a case of this guy, Jason Balcom, who was 19 years old, an absolutely vicious, prolific serial rapist who wound up murdering a 22-year-old pregnant woman who just moved down with her husband from Ogden, Utah. Mormon family. She was a wonderful person, nicest, sweetest family you can imagine. And he raped, sodomized, and tied her up and stabbed her for fun. Well, he got caught committing a super vicious rape about within a month in the state of Michigan. Kidnapped a woman, high-speed chase with the police, whole deal. And we got that guy after he was in custody after that, only killing one. He absolutely was going to do it again, but they got him first. Technically, that guy who raped probably a dozen women and murdered one by the age of 19, you know, he doesn't meet the FBI definition of serial killer. That is a friggin' serial killer in every respect of the word, but he doesn't meet the definition, right? And there are plenty of serial rapists that got caught after just one or two rapes and no murders that were well on their way to doing the murder component, that are in prison, and they are serial killers in every respect. They just haven't crossed that line yet, but they will if they're ever released from prison. We saw that with Rodney Alcala with his release in, you know, the early 1970s. He kidnapped and raped 8-year-old Tali Shapiro, fled to New York, went to NYU Film School under a fake name. They catch him, they extradite him to California. He had a life sentence, and he was paroled in 34 months. And after his parole date, he murdered probably 100 people. So it's like, you know, technically he wasn't a serial killer yet either, but they never should have let that guy out of prison. They had him, you know, and that 8-year-old almost died. She was raped so brutally and strangled. She was in a coma for 32 days. And if it wasn't for the actions of a good Samaritan and also a heroic police officer, she absolutely would have joined, you know, the dozens and dozens of other, you know, homicide victims of that guy. Yeah. So it's fascinating stuff. I'm sorry to blather too long on your show.
It is. It's incredibly fascinating. And you're right, Matt. You're right. The Good Doctor's books and definitions absolutely hit it on the head. You were very right to cite it in your book, and to bring that definition back around. And we really should take a second look at it and really reclassify what a serial killer is in America. It's amazing the DNA work that the police do. And I want to ask you this question before we go to break, because we're running behind on our break, but we're going to take our break here after this question. That's this. Do you feel like now with that DNA work that's being done that it has curbed serial killers at all? Or do you feel like they're just as prolific as ever?
Well, they're definitely still out there in the same amount of like their numbers haven't changed a bit, and we're seeing that in America. I just think that with forensics, they're getting caught earlier, and a lot of them being caught after their first or second rape. So they tend to work their way up to that, and it's kind of like we've all heard that the great American psychopath starts with animals. That's true. You see abject acts of cruelty oftentimes, sadism as children, and that really is a common thing when it comes to these guys. And so I think that they go from that to, usually they don't start out with rape murder as they're starting out. They start out with, a lot of times they'll start out as a peeping tom, and they work their way up to then breaking in and maybe stealing some underwear, and then they'll go up to, like, physically assaulting somebody. You see that progression with people like Rodney Alcala, and it ramps up. You'll see an assault that makes no sense of a woman like Alcala. In his military records, he hit a woman over the head with a bottle in New York when he was in the army in the early 60s. So he's working his way up to it, just like Andrew Urdiales did the same thing. Jason Balcom did the same thing. So what's happening now with modern forensics is they're getting caught after that first or second rape, and they're going in as rapists. In the 60s and 70s, they were essentially running free pretty much, especially with the revolving door criminal justice philosophy that we had, at least here in California in the 1970s. So they were, not only would they get caught, they were getting released then in obscenely short periods of time. And but also, look, we're in a fascinating new age where with social media, I think Rex Heuermann is a really interesting case, because that guy, they believe he killed 19. This is the Gilgo Beach killer. And of course, again, he's presumed innocent. His trial is ongoing. They're not even at the trial stage yet. I think he's been charged with 4. He was dumping his bodies wrapped in burlap, and they only made him with hairs from his arm, 2 hairs from his arm and 1 apparently from his wife. And that's mitochondrial DNA. So the numbers are much, much lower on those. But he figured out a way to defeat modern nuclear DNA forensics, which is fascinating. I think we're going to see more and more of those coming up.
Wow. Now that's mind blowing that you could actually defeat that.
Right.
Right. There, I don't know that I want to give this case away because it's at the end of the book, but there's one way to, well, bleach. I mean, you point that out in one of the cases in the book. Bleach is one way to try to defeat that. But of course, I don't want to tip off that particular case. It's one of the ones towards the end of the book. I tell you what, we're going to take our break right here. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about some of the other cases in the book, but I also want to talk about the different types of motivations for murder that you point out in the book. The name of the book, and it's a fascinating book, folks. I encourage you to go out and get it. We have a link in the description of this program. It's called The Book of Murder, A Prosecutor's Journey Through Love and Death. Matt Murphy is the author, and it's available right now. By all means, go out and get it. Go out and get it during the break. When we come back, more with Matt Murphy. We'll talk about the motivations for murder. We'll talk about 1 or 2 more cases here in the book, and we'll talk about Matt's TV career and crossing over into television. So we'll do that when we come back right here on the best in true crime podcasting, True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is Matt Murphy. He's the author of the new book, The Book of Murder, A Prosecutor's Journey Through Love and Death. On this segment of the program, we're going to talk a little bit about the different motivations for murder. We'll talk a little bit about 1 or 2 more of the cases here in the book. And then I want to ask Matt a little bit about the world of television and crossing into the world of television. Kind of an unusual crossover as far as careers go, but you know what? It's an interesting crossover as well. And I want to ask Matt a little bit towards the end of the program about the proliferation of true crime on television and whatnot. So we'll get into that towards the end of the program. Matt, let's talk about motivations for murder. You know, the mind is a wonderful and terrible thing. We can put that put that up there. We've been talking about serial killers and just the motivation of doing it out of pure, I don't know if we want to call it lust or the want to do it. But there's other motivations as well, as you point out in the book. Greed is one of those. And you have an interesting story in the book that is absolutely chilling. I mean, just chilling. That has to do with a former soldier that had been in Afghanistan and his partner, who talk about. I mean, there's a psychopathic twist to it, but I believe the man's name is Ed Shin.
Oh no, that's Daniel Wozniak.
Oh,
Yeah,
Daniel Wozniak. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I got that mixed up.
No, that's another chapter, but it's the one right next to it, and it's practically the same guy. So you're not wrong.
Not too far off. Daniel Wozniak. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's that's right, because it has to do with the theater. Theater. That's right.
Right.
Right. Daniel Wozniak. And you're talking about and Sam is the name of the man who was had served over in Afghanistan.
That's right.
And go ahead. I'll let you.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he was one of the. Sam Hare was he was in a place called Camp Keating in Afghanistan, and he was a genuine war hero. Saw real combat in one of these combat outposts that they were using to interdict the Taliban smuggling, young men and supplies and arms to the Taliban from Pakistan. So this was like the actual real shooting war in Afghanistan. And he saw combat in one stretch 83 days in a row. So there aren't, as you can imagine, a whole lot of places for a young soldier to spend their money. So he had accumulated about $60,000, a little north of that, in combat pay that his father helped him manage. And he came back and he was wanted to get his college degree, and then his plan was to rejoin the Army as an officer. So he went he went to a place called Orange Coast College, OCC, and he was in an apartment. And he went missing. His father came to find him because they hadn't heard from him, and walked into his apartment and found a friend of his, a woman named Julie Kibuishi, who'd been murdered on Sam's bed, and her jeans had been torn off her. It looked like she'd been sexually assaulted, and Sam was in the wind. And it was, veteran who saw real combat, who may have murdered somebody, and then they got into his phone, and it looked like he'd been going through some, mental crisis right before he saw her, and there were some things left at the scene that looked like he might have been jealous, like there might have been another guy involved. But almost you walk into the scene and it looks like it's your standard sort of run-of-the-mill domestic violence murder. And I had really good detectives on that case, and it turned out the whole thing was a lie. And this, I guess, a spoiler alert here. It was a guy named Daniel Wozniak, who was a community theater actor. He didn't have a job. Same sort of program. He grew up in a loving home with parents who were nuclear families, still together, loved him. Nobody bullied him. Nobody abused him. And he had a fiance. He wanted to get married. And he was a community theater actor, which means he was not getting paid for these roles. And he was the star in a play called Nine, which is it's about an Italian director, and his 40th birthday, sort of coming to grips with his own infidelities and his own life, and whether he wants to live a good life or not. And what he essentially did is we learned he lured Sam to a theater on the Los Alamitos military base, up in the attic, murdered him, took his cell phone, faked all these messages, and the plan was he was going to murder Julie, which he did. He lured Julie to Sam's apartment. The idea was murder her, make it look like Sam did it, cut off Sam's head and hands so that somehow in Wozniak's mind, his body wouldn't be able to be identified, which is just stupid because he's a member of the military, which means he's in the CODIS system, so his DNA is on file. And then run around with his ATM card and get into that $60,000 and then go on a supervision honeymoon with his with his fiance, and it was utterly diabolical. And it was a fascinating case. It was heartbreaking for those families, but it was a really interesting case with interplay between, forensic science in certain respects. There was a ton of DNA that we wound up recovering later, and matching ballistics with the firearm that was recovered. It was a mix of that and just good old fashioned gumshoe police work. And really, the police deserve all the credit in that, because they're the ones that, I honestly, I hate to admit it, but I bought off on every fake clue he left for us. It's like, come on, he's in the wind, And turns out, and the detectives who were like, no, something stinks, something's not right, something doesn't make sense here, and they figured it out. I mean, my hat just goes off to those guys. And Wozniak eventually confessed to everything that he had done, and he had a short run at it, at an insanity, thing. And of course, he was not insane. He
No.
was lazy and ruthless. And yeah, it's a fascinating case.
Yeah, I encourage people to get the book so they can see just how detailed that Wozniak gets to try and throw people off the scent. And
Yeah.
because you can blame a lot on someone who's been in service on PTSD, and he tried to go as far as he could to blame an innocent serviceman who had been in, I believe you said, for 83 days in a row, this poor serviceman had to go back and forth to get fuel for generators.
Right. Yeah. So just to explain that a bit, he had two specialties. He joined the army and he became a diesel generator mechanic. Okay, so that in these forward operating outposts, these combat outposts, they run on diesel. So the way it works is that diesel runs all the electronic equipment, so all the communication equipment. The electricity in those little bases depends on these generators, and and they couldn't, you don't store the fuel in the same place with the troops or with the equipment, because if the Taliban scores a lucky hit, everything burns up, and that's bad. So the Taliban figured this out pretty quickly, that the communication to the support, that's artillery, mortars, helicopters, all like the good guys that are going to come in and save them. And Camp Keating was famously overrun in one of the most famous battles of the Afghanistan War. I think there's more Medal of Honor recipients in that at that base than I think anything, at least since Vietnam. And these guys, this was real John Wayne war movie kind of combat, because what the Taliban would do is they would attack a base and realize that if the generators ran out of fuel, the electricity would stop, which means the communications would stop. And that would leave them far more vulnerable if they couldn't communicate. So they would do these hours-long attacks in the hopes that the generators would run out of fuel. And every once in a while, they would time it in a way that they, sure enough, would get the generators low. So some poor dude would have to run through enemy fire to where they stored the fuel for these things and run back. And that was Sam Hare. And because he was responsible for fixing the generators. And then he went to paratrooper school also. So he became a combat mechanic basically for these generators. And that's why they sent him to Camp Keating. And that's why he saw such crazy, vicious combat. And that's one of the things about that case that will always bother me. And there's a lot of things about that case that bug me. But this is a guy who survived the worst that the Taliban could dish out for a year in Afghanistan. And he came back and he was murdered by some two-bit cheesy community theater actor. And no, again, not criticizing community theater actors, but this guy he wasn't the Taliban, and he was not a warrior. What he was is he was a snake who took advantage of Sam turning his back on him. He's the worst that you could be.
Yeah.
And that's the guy, after surviving a year of combat against the friggin' Taliban, the person who finally succeeded in shooting and killing Sam Hare was Daniel Wozniak. And it's like a violation in the food chain.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I don't know. It is just wrong in every way. And that case, the families were so heartbroken on that. And that's one I will never forget, that case, that trial. And fortunately, we had really good judges and we had a really good jury on that, and they did the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, one of those stories that you want to read it from beginning to end, just to see the minutia, the detail in that story, just to see how, and it is stomach turning, folks. You really got to read it for yourself. That's for sure. The the other story that I was alluding to, I want to get into that one too. The one with Ed. And that one was interesting in the fact that it had to do with two guys who go into business with each other. But the fact of the matter is that all is not as it seems. One man, Ed Shin, is supposedly a God-fearing man who takes his kids to Disneyland, gets into business with another guy who, he's a surfer. Oh, I'm sorry. Is he a skateboarder or a surfer? I'm trying to remember.
Surfer. Yep.
Surfer.
Surfer. Yeah.
He's got a great girlfriend who wants to eventually cash in his chips and get away from it all, and would like to eventually, Chris, is that his name? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. Chris Smith. Chris Smith.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. He grew. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll let you finish it, Matt. It's yours to tell. So.
Well, it was another fascinating case. This Chris grew up in Santa Cruz. He loved the ocean, had a brother he loved, family who loved him. And he wound up getting into the advertising business in a subset called the advertising lead business. So they would basically, it's those ads you see late at night, or sometimes the stuff that pops up on your computer screen. The people that are advertising those, attorney services, or, hair restoration, mortgage settlement, whatever it is, a lot of times those are the number on the screen, operators waiting now. That's actually an advertising company. And for people that call in, they then contract with people who buy the leads. And it's a really interesting subset of the advertising business, but you can make a lot of money in that, and the way it's structured. So these guys were two young guys. So Chris moved down from Santa Cruz, and he got into that end of the business, and he met another guy his age, like late 20s, early 30s, named Ed Shin. And Ed on the surface looked like the kind of the perfect American dad. He had a beautiful wife. He had a bunch of kids. He was doing weekly Bible studies, charming, handsome guy, all of that same sort of stuff. And turns out he was living a double life. So Chris, it turns out Ed was stealing from his previous company. So Chris and Ed met each other and liked each other, and they decided they'd go into business together. So they started their own company. In their first year in business, they made $12 million. It's like two 33-year-old guys, 12 million gross, and their overhead was, minimal. I mean, their margins were just huge. So these guys, they made their first year in business, each of them made several $1,000,000 as individuals. But it turns out Ed, one of the reasons for starting the business wasn't just sort of a next progression. It was he wanted to get out of the company he was working for, because it turned out he'd been embezzling money. So he winds up, that catches the eye of the Riverside County DA's office, and they wind up prosecuting him for the embezzlement. And he pled guilty. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison, but it was suspended pending successful restitution payments. So he owed $700,000, and the clock was ticking. Now, he should have had several million. And the way their arrangement was, Chris was the creative force of their business, and Ed was the business guy. So Ed had the books, and Ed had the bank accounts, and Ed ran all that. And Chris trusted him. So Chris was generating the product. Ed was getting the clients and doing the banking part. And Chris became increasingly concerned about, being in bed with a guy who turned out to be a crook. And also he began to worry about, his money. So he hired a lawyer, and Ed wouldn't give him access to the books. So they went through this whole negotiation. And then all of a sudden, everybody got emails from Chris saying, "Hey, I've decided to change my approach here. I've let Ed buy me out, and I'm taking a round the world surf trip, and I'm breaking up with my girlfriend, and I've met somebody else, a Playboy centerfold named Tiffany Taylor, and off we go." And that was, and he basically disappeared, and we just had a bunch of people would receive emails, the family, and that's the last anybody heard of him.
All seems very suspicious. Again, I'm gonna refer you guys to the book, because the ending is shocking to that story. And Matt, I tell you, it's funny what greed does. It really is funny what greed does when and what it leads people to do. and how far people will go when there's, and if you think about it, you think about how much money is actually floating out there in the world. 12 million, you and I sit here and go, wow, 12 million bucks. But 12 million really isn't that much money when you consider how much money is actually floating out there.
Oh yeah. Well, and what's the price of your soul? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what price tag do we put on literally our soul? I'm not religious, but
Yeah.
that's really, I think some of these cases are so utterly diabolical that you can only wrap your head around it in that way.
Right.
So.
Exactly. Exactly. Before we leave people today, I want to talk about the crossover to TV. So what gets you from the DA's office to eventually wanting to cross over to television? What is that move?
So yeah, I was really with those cities, Newport, Costa Mesa, Laguna. The murders aren't frequent in those places, but when they happen, they tend to be really diabolical. A lot of them are, the serial killers will strike there, but a lot of them are conspiracies to murder other people for money, which are fascinating. And the people tend to be beautiful, and there's yachts and fancy houses, and it's kind of that Real Housewives of Orange County
Mhm.
thing, but the murder version, and it's real. And so I did a bunch of cases that wound up being very high profile, and so I met a whole bunch of these producers for Dateline, 48 Hours, 2020, and you get to be friends with them. It's like my detectives. You work enough cases with them, you get to be very friendly with them. And it's the same thing with a lot of the members of the media. And then, I did it for so long. I was in Homicide for 17 years, doing every murder in those cities for almost 2 decades. So, the field producer becomes the regional producer, and then eventually they all get recalled back to the mothership in New York City. So after 17 years in the unit, that's the longest anybody had done in that vertical thing. And we had an election, and I was 52. I thought it was a good time for me maybe to think about the next step. My original plan as a DA, I was going to be DA for 3 years. So 26 years later, there I was, and figured it was a good time to make a move. So I sent out sort of a tester, like, hey, would you guys be interested in helping me tell some of the true crime stories nationally? And the example I've used, which is pretty obnoxious and probably not politically correct, I got to feel like the beautiful girl before prom. Like everybody all of a sudden, I never had that much interest in me ever, and all of a sudden I had all these really awesome media organizations, Oxygen, and everybody. I began sort of talks with everyone on going and doing true crime analysis for them. So I've been with ABC since I left the DA's office in 2019. They've been wonderful to me. I do a bunch of commentary for 2020 and Good Morning America, and it has just been a blast. We've got a Hulu special coming out, a 3-parter on my Nairi case, which is the last chapter in the book.
Mhm.
That's coming up. I got to work a bunch with Anna Kendrick and her movie, which I was really flattered and honored to help on. And then I got to write the book. All of that is only possible because I left. So that's the transition. And I'm still practicing law in LA. I mostly defend police officers. I'm really kind of selective about the cases that I take, but yeah, so it's been a real interesting transition, and I've enjoyed it. That said, I still miss the job every single day. I miss my team. I miss my cops. I'm like one of these old police dogs, that they retire, and I still want to get in the car. And I had a media event for ABC that I had to do probably about a year ago, and they rented a place. Why, I don't know, but it was basically in a really rough area of LA. And but I'm driving out of that after we do the shoot, and there's a crime scene with the yellow tape and all the police cars, and it's like I wanted to stop and go in and see if I could help. So I miss it a ton. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. I really wanted to share some of the behind the scenes for the public, and I wanted to give credit where credit is due to so many of these hardworking detectives and forensic personnel that work without complaint behind the scenes of these cases and never get enough credit. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's my story.
It's a wonderful story indeed. One last one for you, Matt, before we leave people today, and that's this. With podcasts such as this one, true crime shows that are out there, and even such as the work as you're doing is spreading story, the different true crime stories that are out there. Do you feel like the proliferation of these different stories is helping keep the general population aware of these different killers that are out there? Is it making the public more safe?
I really think it is, and I also think that the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority of like the good true crime that's out there is also very victim sensitive, which is where all of my heart is. It's with the parents of the murdered victims or their families, and like that's so the vast majority I think really is good. And if you've ever gone to CrimeCon, you go in and you see just regular folks, and they're going to presentations on the collection of forensic evidence, or they're hearing from pathologists who do autopsies, and it's fascinating, but it's also very educational. And I think that, as an attorney, there's a lot of good and bad in my profession, but I think it's mostly good. And I think that it's sort of the duty of lawyers to educate the public, if they have an opportunity, about how there really are hardworking judges and good jurors. And we hear a lot of stories about how the system fails, and there's legitimate true stories. But there's a lot of times where, as a friend of mine puts it, the plane lands safely. You get hardworking detectives, the women and men in law enforcement that go to the scene, and good jurors who show up, and good judges, and people put it together, and good defense lawyers who are in there doing the right thing too. And most of the time that plane lands safely. And so I think that most true crime really does educate the public on that. There is some stuff that drives me crazy, I'll tell you. There's a range of quality. Some of the stuff I'm reading right now, not to go down a rabbit hole here, but about the Menendez brothers is driving me insane. I've been yelling at the TV more than once in the last week or so, and Kim Kardashian and all that. And but the vast majority of it is good, and it's well intended. And I think that any opportunity I have to educate the public as to the way these things really work, I only see benefit for victims, for law enforcement, and for criminal defendants. I think that it's just, we're better as a society, and more people learn about this really important thing, and that's trying to figure out and seek justice for murder, and violent crime. So I think it's overall a good thing.
Excellent. Excellent. Name of the book is The Book of Murder, A Prosecutor's Journey Through Love and Death. Matt Murphy is the author. I encourage you guys to go out and get it right now. We have a link in the description of this program. Matt, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Folks, it's time now for us to lighten things up a bit. It's time now for us to bring in Jessica Freeburg. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time again, the time you all look forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And once again, we need a co-hostess. So we bring in the witty, the intelligent, the brilliant, the, by now, best-selling author all around the globe. We can't just restrict her to the New York Times or the Hindustan Times. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Jessica Freeburg. Hi, Jess.
Hello. How's it going?
Oh, it goes splendidly. Although as the weather seems to change, the chippers are getting lazier. I now have to deliver garage service to them as far as peanuts go. So
they're so spoiled, Tim.
They are. I had to actually go to the mouth of the garage today and be like, "Where are my kids?" And then they came to the lip of the garage and like, "Come on, fork it over."
I'm just kind of like a creepy stalker in the chat right now. I haven't really said much, but I saw a picture that you posted of one of your little fur babies, and that little guy is not so little.
No, they're getting to be good size.
Yeah, they look very healthy and happy.
They are very healthy. Yes, they eat quite well.
That's what I say when I go to the doctor and they weigh me. I'm like, shut up! I'm just happy.
That's right. I'm very happy.
Not fat.
Although I I'm proud to announce down 45. I'm down 45. I haven't moved off that though, although I'm trying, but I
Yeah.
haven't moved much off of that. So they're like, come on, fat ass, get out there and exercise. No excuse now that the foot is whole and healthy. So
It's so hard to find time though. I used to love to run and now I feel like I just don't even have time to think about it. And then when I do it, Tim, I look ridiculous. You know, you drive down the road and you see people and they're basically walking, but they're moving their arms like they're running. You're like, that's what I look like.
everybody in my neighborhood does that though, Jess. All day long. You know, I sit out on my porch and I do my work, you know, and I sit out me and the chippers and that's all Spud does is sit and watch runners.
Yeah.
I think that's her
And
form
some
of
people look so good when they run. And then like my daughters and I saw some boys running when we were on vacation and it wasn't because they were attractive. It was just they looked so proper and tall and their strides were long. I mean, they just looked graceful and like that.
yeah. I just did it on video. It looks like the yardstick is firmly up the tuchus. Yeah. The yeah, that
They
stride.
looked so great. And I'm like, I look like the person. I'm like taking puffs out of my inhaler. I'm leaning over. I'm can't breathe. I'm crying a little bit. I'm swearing a lot.
I would rather see that. I would rather see the person struggling than the, looking like they're not breaking a sweat. Like, actually our neighbor runs, she like travels everywhere and she runs 10Ks, 100Ks, 400Ks. Uh, and she looks like she doesn't break a sweat.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
getting sweaty just thinking about running.
yeah. So like I try to put down like, those strips that the cops put down, for cars. I try to do that to try and deflate her tennis shoes as she runs by my place, but it doesn't do it.
Just a little sabotage.
Yeah. It makes the chipmunks giggle. You know, so yeah, I do what I can.
Oh, we're bad.
Yeah. You do what you can. So it's neither here nor there. By the way, we have links in the description of this program. Pick up Jess's 2 new books because I don't see a plaque on the back wall there. So I take it
Not yet.
not yet, but it's coming, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure it's coming. I can feel it.
The New York Times call you this week?
Several times. I just keep screening my calls. I'm just
Oh,
not
okay.
in the mood to talk to them right now.
Yeah. They said it's on the way. The should be getting the plaque from them from FedEx anytime now, or
Yeah, it's
yeah.
coming.
Okay, just checking. All right, let's get to our stories. Big show today. Lots of odd stories today. Today is the potpourri, the hodgepodge, the everything that wasn't fit for the last couple of weeks, I guess.
Perfect.
I don't know if this is the fall break. I don't know if dumb crimes and stupid criminals are all. I don't know if they're taking a break to go look at the fall foliage. If
They're just resting right now.
I don't know if they took time to go help hurricane victims. I don't know if what they're
Oh,
doing.
that's nice of them.
I think so. I think so.
I did. I heard a funny story. I was driving like 2 days ago, and they said on the radio that somebody over in the UK broke into someone's house and cleaned it for them. And they got 20 months in prison, not 20 years, but 20 months.
Wow.
What is with all these criminals breaking in and like doing nice things for you?
That's supposed to be around Christmas. They're early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Like you can break in and make me shrimp.
Yeah.
You can break in and clean. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm here for it. But when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening in the universe that criminals are breaking in and like
It's amazing.
doing niceties for people?
They've got OCD. It's amazing. It's great. Gotta love it. I got a story from Tony. I'm not going to read it on the air because it's kind of long, but you remember we were talking about, was it you and I that were talking about communications between towns and in the hurricane and fiber? Might have been Mally and I that were talking about
I
it.
don't think it was me, but
Okay. It might have been Mally and I. We were talking about how, oh, it was Mally and I last week we were talking about how, um, you could, especially with the in the Appalachians and whatnot, you could help out with fatalities and hurricanes if you just had better communications between towns and we were talking about, you know, we were talking about happy stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Tony sent me a story, and we'll go over it tomorrow. Maybe I'll bring it up tomorrow on Supernatural News. But there was actually a helicopter pilot that was threatened with arrest for flying into the mountains and saving people.
What?
Yeah, it's insane. And that's kind of what we were talking about last week about you know, especially on the heels now of another hurricane threatening Florida. And it's Hurricane Milton now that's threatening Florida on top of Helene. And it's been categorized, as we're taping now on Monday, it's categorized as a Cat 5.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's devastating. You know, if that thing moves north, well, then you're talking about areas that are going to be more rural and people that may need help like that. But a private citizen who has a helicopter went up into the mountains to help people that needed evacuating and was told by a fire chief that he'd be arrested if he continued to help evacuating people by helicopter, and that he was messing up the operation. That was a direct quote. It's like, what? And then the police chief was like, I don't know what's going on. Because he asked the police chief, are you going to arrest me if I go
Yeah.
co-pilot? Because he had left his co-pilot behind to take someone off the mountain, bring him back down. And the police chief said, I don't know what's going on, to be honest with you. There's so much going on right now, and we've got so many irons in the fire. Do what you have to do.
No kidding. Really.
Yeah. So it just, it's an interesting story. I'll bring it up tomorrow on Supernatural News, but we have a lot going on today, including this story, Jess. We're going to go to Atlanta. Kind of a tragic story to start things out. Atlanta's investigator of the year is fatally shot after allegedly breaking into a home.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. 32-year-old Aubrey Horton was killed in Douglas County by a homeowner in self-defense.
Was she just coming over to clean?
Yes, just coming over to clean. It turns out that he was, I don't know what he was doing. I think he probably had the wrong home when he was trying to investigate it. An off-duty Atlanta police investigator was fatally shot Friday morning after breaking into a Douglas County home, according to officials. The Douglas Sheriff's Office said it was around 5 a.m. when deputies responded to a home in the 8,000 block of Ornke Way near the St. Andrews Golf Club about reports of an attempted burglary. The preliminary investigation revealed that a man who appeared to be experiencing a mental health episode or under the influence of narcotics attempted to break into the front door of the home. The individual was able to make his way into the residence and was confronted by the homeowner, the sheriff's office said. The homeowner, acting in self-defense, shot this person inside his residence. The shot was fatal and the individual died at the scene. Atlanta police confirmed the investigator involved was 32-year-old Aubrey Horton. He had been in the department for almost 10 years and was awarded the Investigator of the Year award last week at the Atlanta Police Foundation's annual Crime is Toast ceremony.
That is crazy.
Isn't it, though?
Like a week later, he's dead from breaking into someone's house.
A week later. Horton, who was most recently assigned to the department's fugitive unit, had no law enforcement experience before joining Atlanta Police Department in November of 2015. Douglas officials later learned Horton lived at a home on Rannoch Moore Drive, which is walking distance from where the shooting took place. The sheriff's office did not say why Horton allegedly broke into the nearby home. We are working closely with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to learn more about what occurred as they investigate the incident, Atlanta police told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in an email. At the September 24th award ceremony, Horton was recognized for his work in connection with last year's disappearance and death of a Gwinnett County man. I felt that family deserved justice, Horton said in a video presentation during the award ceremony. He said the suspects were difficult to apprehend and find because they seemed to know how investigators and police operated. They were finally able to get a break in the case and have arrested three people in connection with Leandre Flint's death and disappearance. That's what I like to do in police work now, is bring closure to people like Leandre's family so these people have their day in court and face justice, Horton said. Horton described himself as a hard worker who would often spend too many hours on the job, but said he was getting better at that. You got to continue to pound sand, turn things over, and you're looking for that one break. That's all you're looking for, is that one break, and then you got to jump on it, Horton said about his investigations. What a sad story.
That's really sad and tragic.
I wonder if he was just either maybe had a couple at the bar and maybe was just a little intoxicated and accidentally walked into the wrong home.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he was working at getting in though. You know, like he broke in. It wasn't like he just was able to open the door and walk in.
Yeah. It's just confusing, but
Maybe he had some sort of a mental break or something.
he might have. That might be the other thing too. Maybe he'd been working too hard, had a mental break, like you said, and just was out of his mind and walked into the wrong home and paid with it with his life.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah, unfortunate. This next story is not an unfortunate one, Jess. This one, we're getting right into it. As far as dumb crime, stupid criminals go, YouTuber Jack Doherty totaled his $200,000 McLaren during a live stream after apparently texting while driving in the rain. I think I may post this because it's got video attached, and it is quite the video. This kid just looks stupid. He really does. I mean,
well, that's a pretty stupid thing to do.
It is. It is. YouTube personality and kick streamer Jack Doherty totaled his $200,000 McLaren supercar that he apparently texted and drove in the rain while live streaming himself. Video of Doherty's kick stream shows the 20-year-old internet star looking down at his phone in his hand as he drives along a slippery Miami highway Saturday morning. Seconds later, Doherty loses control of his vehicle, screaming as he glides across the right lane and smashes into a guardrail. The video on the streaming platform goes white, and his cameraman in the passenger seat can be heard groaning in pain. The two men can be heard struggling to get out of the wrecked vehicle, with one frantically crying out, "Open the door, open the door." The footage then cuts to Doherty examining his wrecked, wildly custom-painted car. Social media star, who is now shirtless in the clip, kicks his mangled whip twice. "All my money's gone," Doherty says, before listing the upgrades he shelled out big bucks for on the vehicle, including a custom exhaust system and its paintball gun splatter paint job.
Oh my gosh, I need to see a picture of this.
This is what it looks like, Jess.
Oh. That is a wild looking car. I mean, at least they kept filming.
Yeah. Well,
that's going to go viral for sure. He's going to get some clicks on that.
When you wreck, a $200,000 whip like that, you got to document it. It's going to get clicks. I mean, he's probably going to make that up just in that video alone,
For sure.
I mean, that's for sure. Doherty purchased the McLaren at the end of last year for $202,850.10. Don't forget the 10 cents, by the way.
That 10 cents is really important.
It is. Otherwise, you can't make the purchase. According to Sportskeeda, there were 185,000 people in Doherty's live stream at the time of the crash.
185,000?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Can you imagine how many ads pop up as you're watching that? And wouldn't that be the drizzling shits, as just as he's about to go into the guardrail, you end up with a pop-up ad for dick pills?
No.
Right? Just saying. Doherty's cameraman reportedly sustained minor injuries in the accident. He had blood dripping down his face afterwards, according to TMZ. The two men went to the hospital where the cameraman received stitches. Kick has since banned Doherty from the platform.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they don't want to be liable for other people trying to pull off the same shenanigans.
Right. Right. Yeah, they don't want a copycat. But there's somebody else who died today too, who's a YouTube star.
Oh, no.
Yeah, let me see. I have it in my notifications here. I saw it this morning. By the way, Whitney Houston's mother, Sissy, died today too.
Oh, sad.
Yeah, Sissy Houston
I
died.
loved Whitney.
Yeah. We were talking, weren't we talking last week about all the people that have passed?
Yeah, it's crazy because it just comes in waves. It's not like three, it's just like a wave of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. Um, yeah, there's another YouTube star that died young. It seems like a lot of YouTube stars die young too.
Yeah,
And
it's like the curse of the YouTube stars.
and if it isn't, and I hate to stereotype it, if it isn't some sort of drug, then it tends to be some sort of action, like they're crashing something or they tend to live fast.
Yeah, the things people do to get attention and the things that we watch. Like my daughter was talking about, there's a term for it and I can't remember it, but just watching people eat gobs and gobs and gobs of food at one time to the point of making themselves sick. Like that's a thing that people watch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Extreme eating.
It's so weird to me. People wouldn't be putting out the content if if there weren't 185,000 people watching it.
Right. Right. Well, that's the thing. You get something like that where I don't know what it is about the extreme eating thing that's such a big deal for people these days, but there is. I mean, the extreme eating
Yeah,
is huge right now.
it's a thing. And
Yeah.
then I put out a TikTok and I'm like, oh, this is going to get tens and tens of likes.
Yeah. You'd be surprised what people will watch though.
It's weird stuff. It drives me crazy. My kids will show me and I'm like, how does that video of like someone cutting into a piece of bread? That was one my son was showing me. It was just like people cutting into bread. It was just nothing but cutting into bread. And it had hundreds of thousands of likes. I'm like, why? I just don't understand. And then I'll spend all this time researching like mobsters and I'll put out a video and I'll get like 20 likes. Like, I just need to be cutting bread. That's all.
What is that? One of the TikTok graphics I came up with. I came up with an AI graphic for, it was an alien eating a hamburger. And it got more than usual. I was like,
Yeah.
really? The AI
People just like
alien,
weird stuff.
yeah, the AI alien eating a hamburger. That's what you guys liked?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start cutting bread with my feet. That's what I'm gonna do. That's gonna be my new TikTok.
That's
Oh.
gonna get like 5 million hits. You know what? Maybe I should cut bread with my Charcot foot. Oh, people would go nuts over that.
You totally should.
Especially with how bumpy it is. People be like, oh, what is that? Oh, yeah. They'll freak out over that. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
I think you should. I think we're onto something. This is how we're gonna get rich.
Either that or we're on something, one or the other. Speaking of being on something, are you ready for this?
Yes.
This story was sent in by a listener. By the way, if you have a story for us, you can send it to tim@darknessradio.com. I know it's some people send it through the website. Occasionally I'll see it. This one got sent through the website. I was lucky to catch this one, but I'll just forewarn you. Sometimes it's not so easy for me to catch it through the website, just so you know. Stolen Vienna sausages lead to a Georgia nursing home resident being stabbed in the chest.
Whoa, that's a sentence I never thought I'd hear.
Yeah, I know. It kind of seems like word jumble, doesn't it?
I'm ready for this one.
Stolen Vienna sausages. We go to Tybee Island, Georgia, where an argument over who stole Vienna sausages at a coastal Georgia nursing home ended with one man being stabbed. Yeah, this is one of those stories. Tybee Island police say they were called to a nursing home last week where they found a man who had been stabbed in the chest. Investigators say one man accused another of stealing his can of Vienna sausages. I didn't know that was currency in nursing homes.
I think we'll be surprised when we get there, Tim, what we're fighting over.
Damn. I mean, I can understand like Tootsie Rolls, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, they're soft. They kind of melt in your mouth. You can chew them without teeth, right? I mean,
Theoretically, yeah.
but Vienna sausages?
I don't think I've ever had Vienna sausage. It comes in a can. Sounds
Yeah.
like spam.
Oh, yeah. It's got like the little tin. You roll it back. And I mean, they're like sardines, but they're sausagey.
Oh, they're like little weenies in a can.
Yeah, but they keep. I
Hmm.
suppose they're non-perishable. During the argument, one man pulled out a knife and stabbed the other. It's unclear if the man who was stabbed was the one who lost the sausages or not. No one was keeping track, Jess.
Who won the fight, Tim? That's the question.
That's right. The fight of the Vienna sausages. It'll be talked about in that nursing home for, I don't know, years because they got nothing better to talk about. Besides,
That is true.
Yeah. And if the Jell-O was good that day, and if it had fruit in it.
Yes.
The injured resident was taken to the hospital. There's no word on that person's condition. Oh, you'll hear, especially if a bed opens up. You'll hear.
Then we'll know.
Then we'll know. The other resident, whose identity hasn't been released, was arrested and charged with aggravated assault and possession of a knife during the commission on a crime. It's unclear if the Vienna sausages were stolen. Oh, you'll hear. You'll hear, especially
Such a weird story.
It is. You'll hear, especially if that person comes back and their sausages are gone. You'll hear it all over that nursing home. Through the halls. The nurses will tell you. Everybody will hear about it.
Yep.
Yep. We move on to a bizarre criminal. It's a smooth criminal who just loves to lip sync the song.
Ooh, I do.
Yeah. Well, so does this person. Actually, let me give you a little shot of the person right there.
Oh, looks like she's singing right there.
Yeah, she loves to lip sync the song Smooth Criminal as well.
Belting it out.
Yeah. Britain's most prolific thief loves to lip sync to Smooth Criminal. And guess what? She's been jailed again. 43-year-old Tanya Little, who often wears big hats and sunglasses during thieving sprees, has racked up a staggering 172 convictions and more than 400 arrests.
Wow, that is quite an accomplishment.
I think she's an easy to catch criminal, not a smooth criminal. Yeah.
The opposite of smooth.
Yeah. Do you think it's because she's got the song on in the background?
They know she's coming.
Yeah. They're like, you're not so smooth, by the way. We see you.
When you have your theme song playing as you're committing your crimes.
Yeah. Dun 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 dun. No. We see you. We're calling the cops right now. She also allegedly posted how to steal videos on TikTok. There's a big giveaway.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she probably has hundreds of thousands of likes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She millions of likes, I'm sure. Yeah. She probably wrecked her McLaren out there on the boulevard as well. And has plagued shops in the Northeast for decades, so they're well aware of her. The thief's TikTok account features a number of videos showing her sporting different wigs and hats. At one point, she was seen lip syncing to Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal. Life is good. On September 12th, she was issued a civil injunction, meaning she's banned from all stores apart from a pharmacy, a clothing retailer, and a supermarket in the Northumbria police area. Basically, she's banned from everywhere.
She can't go shopping anymore.
They know her.
Can only order from Amazon.
And even there, she steals from your porch. So, yeah. Less than a month later, on October 3rd, Little appeared at Newcastle Magistrates Court via video link from prison, I guess because they caught her again. Little spoke to confirm her name and date of birth. She also admitted 2 counts of theft from a shop, which predate the banning injunction. Ruth Forster, prosecuting, told the court that Little entered ASDA Fossway on August 13th, tried to take 72 pounds worth of laundry items when she was stopped by a member of staff. The police were not called on this occasion, and all items were recovered, but she returned the next day, taking clothing in a handbag valued at 131 pounds.
Wow.
She's productive.
Just doing a little shopping.
Yeah. Forster argued that Little showed some element of planning due to the prolific nature of her offending. Jack Lavelle, defending, argued that this was incorrect due to her reputation. She's immediately identified by staff when she enters a store. He told the court that footage of her being detained by security shows Little being dragged across the floor into the holding room and that she was pushed. The behavior was described as less than appropriate and less than professional. I think I know how they're identifying her, Jess. It's not by her reputation. It's by her horrible makeup job. Take that.
Oh, wow. She has some, yeah, that's some bright makeup she has going on.
When I look at her, I just think, isn't it rich? Kind of a Send in the Clowns vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of like she's putting on stage makeup so you can see her from far away.
Right. See? Yeah.
Yeah. You can really see her coming.
You really can see her coming. He went on to say Ms. Little has pleaded guilty at the first available opportunity because of Ms. Little's record. It aggravates it quite significantly. Little of 12th Avenue, Blythe, Northumberland, was handed a conditional discharge for a period of 12 months. She must also pay 40 pounds partial prosecution costs and a 26-pound surcharge. Chair of the bench, Mr. Peter Trevichik, said, "You appear before the courts today as you have pleaded guilty to 2 matters of theft from a shop. You have 171 convictions and 497 offenses, which 306 of those are theft related." She's busy.
She's quite busy. Wonder what else she's getting in trouble doing.
I don't know, but I wonder if she ever pays for anything. Probably
not. No. My guess is the other convictions are probably drug and alcohol related.
Yeah. You want to see a picture without makeup, there's a startling difference.
Oh, girl.
Yeah, right? Probably a reason why she's pancaking it on.
That's the one where she looks like she's in mid-belt, like she's just singing her heart out.
Yeah.
Her mouth is hanging open.
Isn't it rich? Oh, no, not Send in the Clowns. I'm sorry. No. He says, we're going to deal with these matters today by means of a conditional discharge. The bench was told Little was in prison after being jailed for 3 months for contempt of court. Further information about the offense was given during the hearing. One local store manager claimed she used her social media account, which has 1,400 followers. She has that many followers for being a thief?
Yeah, that's impressive. I'm feeling bad about myself right now, Tim. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I am too. To teach people how to get away with stealing. 1,400 people following her to figure out how to get away with stealing, but she's been popped 400 times.
Yeah, that's not the person you want to take your lessons from, people.
No, she really doesn't get away with it. One of Little's most recent crimes saw her steal 1,500 pounds worth of bags from TK Maxx in Cramlington. It's not TJ Maxx over there. It's TK Maxx.
TK Maxx. Ooh.
Yeah. 27-year-old Tommy Moore, the manager of Card Factory in Gosforth Shopping Center, which Little was banned from in 2013, said she wears different wigs so people don't recognize her when she comes in. Oh, I think I'd recognize her. You see that mall all painted up?
The bright fluorescent red lips.
Yeah. That's like saying I wouldn't recognize Ronald McDonald coming down the street. I think I would.
Because he's not wearing his curly red hair. He has on like a black wig instead.
Yeah, or a rainbow wig. I think I
Yeah.
know. Yeah. I think I
Oh,
know.
Ronald McDonald.
Yeah. Everybody knows Ronald McDonald. We point her out to new staff members when she comes in. She has a TikTok account where she showed people how to get away with stealing, but the video was soon taken down. I don't know how the ban is going to work or how it will be reinforced. She will still try to come into different stores. I don't think she's there, or I don't think there's much else anyone can do. If she was sent to prison, she would only go away for a few months, come back out to do the same thing. No, maybe show her a trade or a hobby. I don't know.
Yeah, let's get that girl knitting some socks or something.
Yeah.
Something productive.
Maybe comic book collecting. There's a fun hobby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, get her reading comic books.
I like that. I have a couple she could read.
Yeah, she might steal them though. I mean, but comic book collecting, that might be fun.
That's not a bad idea.
Just saying. She might enjoy it. She might learn a thing or two.
About something other than stealing.
Yeah. Let's move on. There's a man in Malaysia who pleads not guilty to false prophet claims. I didn't know you could be charged with that, but
wow, really? I didn't know you could either.
yeah, we're learning something new here today, Jess. You can be guilty of being a false prophet. A Singaporean man on October 4th pleaded not guilty to 2 charges of teaching false religious doctrine at a court in Seremban. There we go. Having allegedly claimed that he was a present-day prophet who had also had the ability to channel the spirits of other religious prophets. How do you prove that?
I think it's probably pretty hard to legitimize.
Yeah.
But,
well, you never know. But see, I could sit here and go, Abraham Lincoln. I don't know. I mean,
and I'd be like, tell me more, Abraham.
That shot in the head hurt. I don't know. I mean, see, you wouldn't know, would you?
Yeah, I'd buy it. If you had a cult, Tim, I would be your first member.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Jess. I appreciate that. The man identified by local media as 60-year-old Idris Ami was charged in the Saraya High Court in Negeri Sembilan. I think I nailed it. He was not
a lot of hard words, but you did good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. He was not represented by an attorney in court. Why? Because it channeled right through him. I'm just saying he didn't need it. He just channels his own attorney.
That's right.
Yeah. Idris, a forklift driver, was accused. Well, see, from forklift driver to prophet.
The Messiah is driving a forklift.
It's the ultimate success story, Jess. Huh? Idris
well, Jesus was a carpenter, right? So it's not a stretch.
No, not at all. Not at all. Idris, who is a forklift driver, was accused of telling 2 men aged between 42 and 46 in a house in the state's Kuala Pilah town on 2 occasions in October of 2023 that he was a contemporary prophet. He was also accused of telling the same men that his body was able to possess the holy spirits of prophets from Adam to Muhammad.
Wow, that's such a talent.
I know, right? I wonder if it was like a ventriloquist dummy. Like if he actually had to speak it through his mouth, or if he just did like the hand puppet deal, like Senior Wences.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Like this is me, and this is Adam.
Yeah, you have to have some kind of a thing, right? You can't just like, I'm a prophet. You got to come up with something more entertaining in these days.
Right. Like he would say, I am the prophet Idris. And this is Adam. Right. This is the God Adam. Right. So you just go back and forth. Idris has a question for Adam. So Adam, How are things today?
These are pretty good. How'd it go with you, Idris?
I like how your puppet sounds like Hanky the Christmas pal.
Or Senior Wences.
From
It's going okay today, Adam. How's it going with you?
It's all right.
See? I mean, it works pretty
It's
good.
working.
Yeah, see?
He's okay.
See? I should have drawn eyes on him.
Yes.
Would have been much better, but it's kind of an
Pretty
improv.
good though. You got the motion in your thumb. I can't do that. I don't know how you're doing it, but
Hello, dear. He's okay. Hello from Adam.
I can't not move my mouth though when I do it. So
that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard not to move your mouth.
He's okay.
But it's fun to watch you try.
thanks. I appreciate that. Judge Zulfikri Yasoa set bail for Idris at RM 8,000 or $2,470 with 4 sureties. The accused also has to remain in Malaysia until his court trial scheduled for November 19th. It must also report to Negeri Sembilan's chief religious officer every month because he wants to see how the act works too. He wants to see
to learn a thing or two.
Yeah, he wants to see how to channel Adam to Muhammad. Yeah. Reports of the court charge was highlighted by Negeri Sembilan's state religious office on its social media accounts, with the incident hashtagged as heretical teachings. Whoops.
I'm going to look up that hashtag. Now I'm curious what's going to pop up.
Yeah, I wonder if it's trending on Twitter. If convicted of teaching religious falsehoods and teaching while unlicensed criminal offenses against the state's Sharia laws, Idris faces a 3-year jail term and a fine of up to RM 5,000. It sounds like a rap term, RM 5,000 G. A 42-year-old Malaysian woman from Malacca, whom local media reported was suspected to be the man's chief assistant, was released on bail. Both were arrested in Pahang while traveling to the East Coast state of, I believe they're putting all these names in here just to confuse me, Terengganu on October 4th. So the head of the Negeri, they're just screwing me up with this one right here. It's Sembilan's Religious Affairs Enforcement Division, Saki Hamzah. He said that the pair were suspected to be involved in propagating doctrine known as Ajaran Cahaya, or the teaching of the light in Malay, for over a year in Kuala Pilah. Mr. Zaki added that the group managed to draw a following of 5,000 people, Jess. 5,000 people followed this.
What?
Yeah. I am Idris.
We're doing it all wrong.
I know, right? I think I can get 5,000 people to follow this. Are you ready?
You just have to be weird. That is all there is to it.
I am Tim, and I am channeling Adam. Say hi, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's it going?
See?
Yep. I expect to see this on your TikTok now going forward. Every day, just a little, encouragement from Adam.
Yep. Daily messages from Adam.
Hello, everybody. Be good day now.
Well, daily affirmations. That's what we need.
Today's affirmation from Adam. Smoke them if you got them.
There you go.
Good advice.
Good advice. Idris had allegedly admitted to not praying since 2021. That could be a problem if you're trying to channel gods.
Yeah, I think you might want to talk to him once in a while.
Yeah. Having told his followers that he had attained a level that allowed him to forego Muslim practices like praying and fasting.
Don't have to do that. I'm a prophet.
Yeah, I'm a prophet. I don't have to pray or fast or any of that religious stuff. His followers were also told to reach his highest level, while male and female members of the group were allowed to hug each other freely as they considered themselves free of sin and without lust.
Oh, well, I do like hugs, so I'm down with that part.
Investigations are ongoing to track down other members of Ajaran Cahaya from spreading their teachings. So, interesting story.
Everybody get down tonight. Eat the hogs.
That's a little message from Adam. Just saying. All right, next story. If you're in the Dallas area and you are driving around in an Uber, just reach over and give your driver a punch.
No.
Well, that's what one elderly man did after an argument over legroom.
Man, there's a lot of fighting going on with these elderly people over things I don't understand.
A lot of fighting, Jess. A lot of fighting going on. There's a video of it as well. It's kind of fun stuff. We go to Dallas, where police are investigating after a rideshare driver punched an elderly passenger from behind. I believe
Wait,
that's
the driver punched the passenger or the other way around? Keep reading.
Keep reading. I believe that's called a donkey punch when it happens.
Trying to conceptualize what's happening here.
I got to say the word donkey punch on Crime Stupid Criminals.
It's a good day.
It is a good day. A surveillance camera captured Wednesday's attack in the Dallas Design District. The 68-year-old passenger tells Fox 4 it all started as an argument over legroom. Surveillance footage obtained by Fox 4 shows a man punching an elderly man in the back of the head Wednesday afternoon. Oh, it was the driver who hit the elderly man.
Oh my gosh. He didn't pay for that. That's not part of the ride.
That's going to hurt her. It's going to hurt his ratings.
Not getting a tip.
Suleiman Galba was the passenger. He says his attacker was his Uber driver. Oh, he's going to get rated horribly. Around 3:20 p.m., video shows an Uber driver in a Chevy Malibu arriving to pick up an elderly couple at Market Center Boulevard in Dallas. Galba and his wife began to get in the back seats. However, 2.5 minutes passed and the car remained there. Surveillance video then shows Suleiman getting out of the car and being punched in the back of the head by the driver before falling to the ground. I've seen Three Stooges videos like this. The driver hovered above him while his wife slowly got out of the car, the video shows. Galba says he complained to the driver about a lack of legroom and not having enough room in the back seat. I cannot sit in the back seat, he said. Very small place, you know. Speak like Yoda, I do. It's very odd. Galba says that complaint led to the Uber driver canceling the ride and telling him to get out of the car. And he said, I'm canceling your ride, Galba said. The Dallas Police Department says there was an argument before the rideshare driver hit Galba in the head. I just told him, why are you canceling my ride? I don't know, Galba recalled. At that time, my wife told him, I'm calling the cops. The suspect drove away before police arrived. I'm thinking, what happened with me? Why he hit me? The elderly man said. That's a quote. Galba, who is originally from Pakistan, says he moved to Dallas from New Mexico a few years ago. He says he does not own a car and orders Uber rides to get around. We wanted to go to the Walmart, he said.
Oh, the Walmart.
The Walmart. He wanted to go to the Walmart.
I love him.
Galba hopes investigators track down the man who, instead of giving him a ride, gave him a punch to the head, and a donkey punch at that.
A donkey punch.
A donkey punch, the coward.
Oh, that guy's really sensitive about the size of his car.
He really is, especially the legroom, right?
You have a really small car.
Well,
What'd you say? I have a really small what?
I have a what?
Car.
Car. Did you say it's really small when I'm hard? Because he deserves this, Galba said. He deserves jail. That's what Suleiman went on to say. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Dallas Police Department. The elderly couple says they did file a complaint with Uber and have a possible license plate. Well, that'll help them.
Can track him down. I mean, that's actually kind of creepy if they can't figure out who he is. They had a ride set up in the app and everything.
Yeah. Uber weighed in. They said the behavior is unacceptable. Violence of any kind is not tolerated on the Uber platform, especially donkey punches. They didn't say that part. And we expect all users to treat each other with respect. We have been in touch with the rider and have removed the driver's access to the platform. Good. As it should be.
As they should. That's right.
That's right. No abusing Suleiman.
No punching people.
No punching people. That's uncalled for. Well, Jess, we tried to build the wall and tried to charge Mexico for it. It didn't happen. Now Mexico is trying to sue us for the guns.
Oh, they are?
Yep.
This is getting interesting.
It's getting interesting. It's getting fun on this side of the border. I found this an unusual story, so I pulled it. The Supreme Court will weigh Mexico's $10 billion lawsuit against U.S. gun makers this week.
A big one.
It's a big one. It's a big one. I thought it was an unusual story. Believe it or not, folks, the Supreme Court said Friday it will decide whether to block a $10 billion lawsuit that Mexico filed against leading U.S. gun manufacturers over allegations their commercial practices have helped cause much bloodshed there.
So we're selling guns to them and they're killing each other?
Oh, there's more, Jess.
Oh.
Get this. It turns out it's dumb crimes, stupid lawsuits. The gun makers asked the justices to undo an appeals court ruling that allowed the lawsuit to go forward despite broad legal protections for the firearm industry. Federal judge has since tossed out the bulk of the lawsuit on other legal grounds, but Mexico could appeal that dismissal. Mexico argues that the company's new weapons were being sold to traffickers who smuggled them into Mexico and decided to cash in on that market. The government estimates 70% of the weapons trafficked into Mexico come from the United States. The defendants include big-name manufacturers such as Smith & Wesson, Beretta, Colt, and Glock. They say Mexico has not shown the industry has purposely done anything to allow the weapons to be used by cartels and is trying to bully gun makers into adopting gun control measures. Now, originally filed in 2021, the lawsuit was initially tossed out by a district court who cited legal protections for gun makers from damages resulting from criminal use of firearms.
That's a wild one.
Isn't that interesting?
I don't think they're going to win it.
No. There's not a court in this land that will.
They're not going to get even a nickel or a dime.
I think U.S. gun manufacturers will pay just as much as Mexico paid for that wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None.
Nothing. Not a penny. So there you go. All right, folks, it's time now for us to get to we have an expanded not safe for work portion of our program today. It's a giant-sized, action-packed, not safe for work.
Right. I better cover Phoebe's ears.
You probably should. Especially for this first part, this first story. It takes place at a dog park.
Oh no, Phoebe, brace yourself.
And a dog leash.
She doesn't like leashes.
Okay. We'll start out. First of all, we got to give ample time here. So if you're at work, put your boss in the closet along with your coworkers so that they can't hear this next part, and put in your earbuds. If you have kids at home who've been listening to the program up until this point, probably a bad idea. Don't listen to this show around the kids, but put the kids in the closet and put in your earbuds and then continue to listen to the program. So here we go in 3, 2, 1. We're in our not safe for work part of the program right now. A man is sentenced for strangling his partner with a dog leash at Salem Park.
Ooh.
Normally you have to pay for that sort of thing. Just saying. That's your
extra.
Yeah, it's extra. Yeah. A man was sentenced to more than 8 years in prison after strangling his partner with a dog leash at Salem Park, according to authorities. This is in Portland, Oregon. A jury found 46-year-old Travis Porter Bryant, formerly of Dallas, Oregon, guilty of attempted murder and other charges after a 2-day trial concluded earlier this week, according to the Polk County District Attorney's Office. A Polk County Circuit judge handed down the 100-month sentence. The Salem Police Department initially investigated the strangulation incident, which happened at Wallace Marine Park in Salem on the evening of August 16th earlier this year. In addition to the attempted murder charge, Bryant was also found guilty of second-degree assault, strangulation, assaulting a public safety officer, and resisting arrest. Bryant's verdict falls under Oregon's Measure 11 minimum sentencing laws, making it mandatory for him to serve at least 90 months if he is approved for any kind of early release or sentence reduction, the official said. He was also sentenced to 3 years of post-prison supervision. So there's your first not safe for work story. Our second story is a depraved one. Are you ready for this? Yes.
If you're saying that, I know it's going to be bad.
It's bad. You're going to want to shower after this one. Here's the headline on this deal. I thought my marriage was perfect, but after my husband died, I discovered his depraved secret life. I felt so mad with rage, I ate his ashes in revenge.
What? I don't understand that part, but okay.
Yeah. There's a book
I'm
out
so
now.
mad at you, I'm going to eat you.
Yeah, eat his ashes in revenge.
Okay.
There's a book out right now by Jessica Waite called The Widow's Guide to Dead Bastards.
Oh.
And there is a passage in it that talks about this.
And that's like a revenge tactic in there.
I guess.
I think it would be more upsetting if you like dumped it in the toilet and then did number 2 on it.
Right. And then right. We've heard stories before, supposedly it's not a true story, but Keith Richards smoking his dad's ashes. I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
But Jessica Waite's perfect marriage perished long before the abrupt death of her husband, and she just didn't know it. I have a question for you here at the end of the story. Her idyllic life came crashing down when Sean, her husband of 17 years, died suddenly from a heart attack on a business trip to Texas. Then, as Jessica waited grief-stricken through funeral arrangements and struggled to care for their 9-year-old son, her world was upended for a second time. It was just days after Sean's death that Jessica discovered that he'd been hiding a disturbing secret. Lying in bed at home in Calgary, Canada, she opened up Sean's iPad to search for the phone number of the Houston hospital where his body was being stored. First mistake. Why are you opening up an iPad to look for a phone number?
Right.
She wasn't looking for a phone number.
Use your phone for that, because then you can just click and dial.
That's right. But Jessica only made it as far as typing "ho" when the search window auto-filled with the words Houston escorts.
Oh no.
This girl was on a mission to find some stuff.
Yeah, that wasn't an accident.
No. Confused, she scrolled through the entire search history, and a stream of disturbing past queries flashed up: locations, girls, services, prices. Over the following months, Jessica would discover that the man she thought of as a loyal husband had been a relentless user of prostitutes, had conducted numerous affairs, and had frequently worked through the night to curate a sprawling collection of depraved images on his personal computer. The industrial scale of Sean's infidelity and obsession, perpetrated over so many years, is revealed in Jessica's extraordinary new book, The Widow's Guide to Dead Bastards. Wonderful book title, by the way.
Oh, don't make her mad.
In some ways, the betrayal of their marriage is the oldest story in history. But at the heart of Jessica's remarkable testimony is Sean's descent into a very modern abyss, an all-absorbing interest in internet-driven sex and pornography, which consumed him and very nearly Jessica herself as she struggled to confront the truth. Porn had cannibalized their relationship, she writes. The world Sean built on the surface, his career, our family, our beautiful home, all of that was matched in size and scope by his subterranean activity. Yet one of the most remarkable aspects of Jessica's story is the fact that she somehow managed to forgive him. My question is, what else are you going to do? Right?
Yeah. You gonna hold on to that and just be angry and bitter?
Yeah. Turns out that there were some good times after all. Jessica and Sean, or John, if you put them together, had first met while working as teachers abroad in Japan. Well, she was 24 and he was 28. They married in July of 1998. They moved back to Canada to raise their son, Dash. Sean took a job as a manager at a company in Denver, Colorado, staying in his bachelor pad there for 3 weeks at a time while Jessica maintained the family at home in Calgary. Despite the distance and occasional rows, they were happy, or at least Jessica thought they were. After the shock of the iPad revelation, the next blow came when she attempted to deal with a series of overdue credit card bills for Sean's work trips, which seemed to involve expensive hotels and room service. Jessica requested itemized receipts from the hotels in the hopes that she could claim thousands of dollars back from Sean's employer. But the receipts, when they arrived, were damning. Breakfast for two, bottles of Prosecco, everything ordered in pairs. In horror, Jessica went to a mutual friend and explained that she suspected Sean had brought escorts back to his room. But the friend had more bad news for her, revealing that Sean had confided that he'd also been having an affair with someone that he'd met through work. As Jessica explains in the book, the truth began to overwhelm her, driving her mad. One day, as she battled to contain her mounting fury, she cut open the bag containing Sean's ashes, carried them into her garden, and mixed them, a portion of them, with her dog's feces, Jessica, before throwing the sorted mixture into the trash.
I understand that. That's fair.
She said, I've desecrated the remains of my partner in life, she reflects, but then in despairing guilt, she then took more of his ashes and actually ate them.
Wow, she just kind of had like a little breakdown.
Little meltdown there. The remains feel dry against my fingertips, coarser than baking powder, grainier than salt, she says in one of the strangest set of tasting notes you'll ever likely read. They mix with the teary water, a mineral mud on the back of my tongue. I swallow. That is descriptive. She admits tellingly to have been detached from all reality in the wake of Sean's death. There was yet more humiliation in store when Jessica traveled to Denver to clear out Sean's bachelor pad. She then found a hard drive. Plugging it into her computer, she discovered that she had created countless electronic folders filled with hundreds of hours worth of pornography, all painstakingly labeled and categorized by age, race, and source. Well, he was organized.
Yeah.
Yeah. She would come to describe it as the matrix of porn. That's cute. She gave it a name. I'm trying to cheer it up. Jessica was able to establish that her late husband had lavished so much time on the project, he had often sat up through the small hours of the night. During bad spells, Sean would often be up working on the Matrix between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., she writes. And some nights, he was up at it for up to 5 hours. There's more to this story, but we're going to eschew it. We're going to leave it alone. There are some shadows that remain. A few years ago, Dash found a specially built secret compartment in Sean's workbench. We'll put it that way. But to conceal the weed that Sean swore he didn't smoke, that's what was in there. So, Sean had a bit of a weed habit.
Lots of layers of a secret life.
That's right. There were some scars there as well. I tell you what, I think I'm actually going to pursue Jessica, see if I can get her on the show.
I really like what you've read. I love her writing style.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Very interesting. And that's a different part of death that's kind of out there. But yeah, I thought that was a very interesting story.
It is. I liked it.
Okay.
In a weird way.
In a weird way. It's a very weird story. But yeah, we've talked about that in the past. People who pass away and leave not such a nice legacy. But it's a different type of crime.
Yeah. You kind of have to come to terms with it.
Yeah. It's a destructive type of deal.
One way or another.
Our next story is from South Africa. The headline is, "He can cry a river, heartless monster." White South African farm maid accused in a murder of 2 black women fed to pigs weeps in court, sparking a fury.
Yikes. Yuck.
Yeah. What was it, you and I talking about people being fed to pigs?
Yes.
Yeah. We're coming back around on this deal.
Yeah.
A South African
fascinating topic.
It is, yeah. A South African farmer and his employees face severe charges for allegedly murdering 2 black women and feeding their bodies to his pigs in an attempt to destroy evidence. Maria Machado and Lakadia, I believe this is in Lovu, were reportedly shot to death in August after trespassing on a pig farm belonging to 60-year-old Zachariah Johannes Olivier in the northern province of Limpopo. According to the BBC, a dairy company dumped some potentially expired goods on Olivier's farm. So 45-year-old Makato and 34-year-old, I want to pronounce this name right, I believe it's Nulovo, trespassed to try to scavenge for dairy products. They were shot after being found on the property, and their bodies were both fed to pigs. Nulovo's husband accompanied both women to the farm and was also shot, but he was able to crawl away to escape the carnage to call for help. After he reported the incident to local police, authorities found the women's body in a pigsty several days after they were killed. Magato's brother told BBC he was with the officers when the bodies were found and saw his sister's body partially eaten.
Oh, gosh.
That is horrific. Now, Olivier, his farm supervisor, Adrian Rudolph DeWet, and agricultural worker William Masora faced 2 charges of premeditated murder, one of attempted murder and one of possession of an unlicensed firearm. Rudolph DeWet cried during a September court hearing, drawing more outrage from the public. I'm sure he didn't look remorseful when he did it. They're a danger to society. How many other people have they done this to and may have gotten away with it? They must stay in jail, one woman wrote. He can cry a river for all we care. He's a heartless monster. He's still going to face worse things in prison where he belongs. He must suck it up, another person wrote. The murders have intensified racial tensions, as many South Africans reckon with 2 other incidents that recently happened on farms. Another farmer and his assistant were arrested in August for allegedly murdering 2 men who they accused of stealing sheep. The victims' bodies were burned beyond recognition in an attempted effort to hide evidence. In another case, a 70-year-old farmer is accused of driving over a 6-year-old boy and breaking both his legs for stealing an orange.
My gosh. And these ladies were just trying to get access to expired dairy products that that guy didn't even want anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Olivier, 19-year-old DeWet, and 20-year-old Masora have not yet entered a plea. Their bail hearing was adjourned until November 6th. So there you go. Moving on. This story is bizarre, Jess. Again, this is why it's in the not safe for work category. A dwarf keeps sneaking into zoo enclosures to steal animals that he tries to sell online. It's okay. You can laugh a little bit. It's a bizarre story. 31-year-old.
Not sure how to react to that headline.
I know. You're like, should I laugh at that? You can laugh a little bit. 31-year-old Ivan Nekrazov was caught by police near a railway station with a checkered shopping bag where he had stuffed 2 red-necked wallabies, which he had stolen from the Kaluga Zoo. A pint-sized thief would use his diminutive stature to bypass zoo security and pilfer animals has been nabbed with 2 baby wallabies stashed in a sack. 31-year-old Ivan Nekrazov was apprehended by the Fuzz near a railway station in the town of Alexandrov, Vladimir Oblast, Russia, on September 30th. In his motor, police discovered a tartan shopping bag where he had crammed 2 redneck wallabies that he'd nicked from the Kaluga Zoo. One of the critters was still kicking, but tragically the other had passed away by the time that Nekrasov was called.
No, he's a wallaby killer.
He's a wallaby killer. Wallaby killer. Officers had been hot on his trail since September 27th, following the theft of a baby kangaroo named Krosh from the Yaroslav Zoo in the early hours. Under interrogation, Nekrasov fessed up to the crime and revealed that to the old Bill that he had already flogged the third animal, while the surviving one he'd planned to swap for a macaque to keep as a pet. So he wanted
he was getting an exotic kangaroo wallaby to trade for another exotic animal.
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
You wanted a macaque, you wanted a monkey. Yeah. Redneck wallabies, native to Australia, are hot property on the international black market, where they're snapped up for private zoos or bred to be slaughtered for their meat. Ew. Nekrasov reportedly confessed that he intended to turn a profit from illegally trading the creatures. It also transpired that he had a rap sheet peppered with minor thefts and housebreaking offenses. At 4'11", Nekrasov exploited his short stature to evade detection by blending into crowds while swiping animals from zoos, often being mistaken for a youngster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. In one remarkable instance, Nekrasov managed to obtain a crocodile and attempted to transport it to Sochi. He visited the Ministry of Internal Affairs to obtain a transportation permit, but the reptile was seized and handed over to animal experts. Nekrasov also was implicated in other animal cruelty incidents, including drowning local cats in the village of Tarnogsky, Gorodok, where he resided in a small house near a church.
Why? Why does he want to kill cats?
He's a psychopath?
I think he might be.
According to a statement from the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs, the suspect was taken to the police station where investigative actions are underway. Criminal cases have been initiated by local law enforcement agencies under Part 2 of Article 158 by the Russian Criminal Code. The rescued marsupial is now being cared for at the Yaroslav Zoo, where it's receiving necessary veterinary care. All right. Let's see here. We have, you know what? I think I'm going to skip that. We have 3 stories left.
Okay.
3 stories left. An art teacher is caught engaged in sexual contact with a minor student at an under construction home just minutes away from a high school during Crime Prevention Month.
Gross.
I know, right? Here's the shock. She's 51 years old.
What?
Yes.
Is she like the hot teacher at 51?
I'll let you judge. You can be judging McJudgerton.
All right. She looks good for being 51, but I don't think like hot for teacher good. But
no. She's not bouncing around a Van Halen video. That's
clearly a pedophile, though.
Yes, that's for sure. A 51-year-old educator in San Antonio, Texas, faces a felony charge after someone called the sheriff's office about suspicious activity with a juvenile male student on a school night last week, just minutes away from the high school where she taught art. Is this the Cornell? Yeah, the Cornell County Sheriff's Office said little about how they concluded illicit sexual activity had taken place between Jennifer Massey of Selma and a student, only that the preliminary investigation revealed the 2 individuals engaged in sexual contact around 6 p.m. last Thursday. Time in the playing out of the legal process could shed light on whether that means the defendant was caught in the act, or if the totality of the alleged circumstances, a teacher and student alone at an under construction home minutes away from the school, led deputies to connect the dots through other investigative means. So far, deputies have alleged that they uncovered the offense at the 22,000 block of Citadel Point in Garden Ridge, apparently the location of a construction site for a home. That location, Google Maps shows, is a 7-minute drive away from Davenport High School, where Massey worked as an art teacher. Interesting. Texas Penal Code 2112 criminalizes improper relationships between teachers and students as a second-degree felony if a defendant engages in sexual conduct, intercourse, or deviates sexual intercourse with a person who is enrolled in public or private primary or secondary school at which an employee works, or if the defendant knows that the victim is enrolled in school elsewhere. I think that qualifies.
I would be so mad as a parent.
Our next story takes place in an LA County bakery where a half-naked homeless woman trashed it.
Here we go.
Here we go. We go to Carson, California, where the owner of a bakery there is cleaning up the mess caused by a transient woman who broke into his store and caused extensive damage. Matthew Valentine, owner of Sweet Valentine on Avalon Boulevard, told KTLA's Angeli Picade that he arrived around 6 a.m. Friday to find the woman inside the store partially clothed. She was just pulling everything out and destroying things, Valentine said in a video posted to social media that showed products, furniture, and decorations scattered across the floor. The woman was arrested outside the Carson, California bakery wearing only a sweatshirt.
No pants.
No pants. Well, when you're going to take apart a bakery, you should probably be pants.
He's going to have your buns out while you're tearing the buns apart.
See? You're going to let your yeast rise. Do it without pants. Just saying. Oh, that was worse. Valentine called the police, who arrived and took the woman into custody outside the store a short time later. Cell phone video shows an officer placing her into handcuffs as she wore only a sweatshirt. Valentine said this was the second time his bakery has been vandalized in the past 10 months. It was gut-wrenching to see. This is my pride and joy, he said. This is a lifetime dream accomplished for me. It seems like every time we try and take a step forward, we get pushed back. Not pushed in the back, if you know what I mean, but pushed back. Members of the community arrived later in the morning to help Valentine clean up. He said he planned to reopen Friday afternoon with a limited menu. One of those, just not on the menu, hot cross buns. And finally, on our Not Safe for Work edition of Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, a pair was caught with ketamine-filled Kinder eggs in their bums at Creamfields.
Wow. I need a second to unpack that.
If you want to see what the pair looks like, these are the gentlemen we're talking about.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, they're
a couple
young.
Of little boys with some Kinder candies stuck up their butts.
That's right. They're young, they're fun. They love Kinder-filled, drug-filled shit stuck up their asses. Let's just call it what it is. We're not safe for work territory, right? 2 men were found with Kinder eggs filled with ketamine in their butts as they tried to sneak the drugs into Creamfields Festival.
And it had to be Creamfields Festival.
Yeah.
Having another layer of what sounds ooey.
Right. Marshall Maddock and Harry Hewitson tried to sneak the drugs into the Daresbury Music Festival on Friday, August 25th of last year. The Liverpool Echo reports as they were about to enter through the north gate, sniffer dogs raised the alarm.
Oh my gosh, they were sniffing them.
Yeah.
How do you want to be the person on patrol who has to find out why the dog is sniffing them?
Yeah.
To go digging.
They got right up the old cheeks, right? You're like, spread them, mate. Right? Can you just imagine that? I mean,
no, I don't want to.
You're like, I got nothing. You're like, no, mate. Come on. Drop and spread them. So as they're about to enter through the north gate, sniffer dogs raised the alarm and both men were taken to be searched by officers. This is where the fun begins. 21-year-old Maddock handed a small quantity of drugs over to police, but then refused to be searched further. Before he refused, an intimate search was then carried out. Ah, boys.
An intimate search.
That's right. Now we're talking fun. You didn't even get
We
dinner.
call that a cavity search.
That's right. That's right. Officers found a Kinder egg filled with 10 bags of ketamine in his anus. 22-year-old Hewitson also refused to be searched initially, but was also found with the chocolate capsule filled with drugs hidden in his anus. Whee! The pair was both sentenced at Chester Crown Court on Friday, October 4th. Maddock of Roberts Drive, Rudheath, was jailed for 18 months after he admitted possession of Class A drugs, cocaine, and possession of Class B drugs, ketamine, with intent to supply. I bet you the boys in jail are going to expect you to supply as well with all that room in your anus. Just saying. Hewitson of Lime Road, Northwich, was also sentenced to 18 months after he pleaded guilty to possession of Class B drugs, ketamine, with intent to supply. Following the sentencing, PC Lisa Green said both men had multiple opportunities to rethink what they were doing, but decided to do it anyways. She said Maddock and Hewitson were well aware of the law and they had multiple opportunities to rethink what they were doing. Amnesty bins were in place at the entrance point of the site for prohibited items. But despite this, they continued in their efforts to smuggle in harmful and illegal drugs. What do you do at that point? Do you honestly just drop trow and shit out an egg?
What I can't get over is intent to supply. So their intention was to take the egg full of drugs out of their butthole and share it with other.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way,
What?
you need any K? Hold on a second. Right?
So awful. I feel like it would melt too. It's chocolate.
Well,
What's in
eventually.
there.
Yeah, yeah. That's a quick exit, Jess. I mean, the minute you get in, you get to a porta potty. You know what I mean?
They're like, my ketamine tastes like chocolate and poop.
You got your chocolate in my ketamine. You got your ketamine in my chocolate. It's a new kind of Reese's. The festival is a huge operation, and Cheshire police work with event organizers and security staff in a bid to prevent illegal drugs from getting onto the site. They went on to say, be under no illusion, while a large majority of Creamfield's festival goers are respectful, those smuggling drugs into the event will be charged and dealt with by the courts. Do not make this mistake. Meanwhile, the entire time I'm reading this story, Jess, I just have to show you there's a graphic for wrinkle cream that keeps coming up, which makes me think if they would have just lubed with the wrinkle cream.
I think it's trying to tell you something. Yep.
Yeah. Just saying, you know. Anyways, but that's that last story for today.
Wow. What a way to end it.
Yeah. So, you know, so if you're thinking of an idea for Easter, no,
There will be no Kinder eggs at my Easter celebration.
no Kinder ketamine eggs for Easter.
No, that's icky.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying, sometimes there's a strung out Easter bunny at your celebrations. You know what he's been doing. So, Jess, you have 2 new books that are out there right now. We have a link in the description of this program so people can get them. There's Monsters of the Northeast and Ghostly Tales of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Plus, the trip up to the Palmer is which weekend again?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I should have had myself prepared.
Aha.
It is November 14th, 15th, 16th, ending on the 17th. So we have Thursday night start and then end on Sunday.
There you go. And
almost sold out, too. The rooms are almost completely full.
There you go. So get in when you fit in or while you fit in. Be sure to get one of those last rooms up there. We're going to have a great time up there. It's got a 20. Yeah. So, and we're not talking
it's going to be fun. Use your discount code too, darkness20 to get 20% off.
There you go. So get that last room, bring your flapper dress or your zoot suit. We're going to have a great time up there. And we're going to do some ghost hunting. We've got, Jess has other activities for you as well.
Yeah, we have workshops, lots of workshops and some sip and paint on Thursday. So you get to create some art on Thursday night and Do some art, writing, a history workshop. It's a lot of fun.
You can check out the details at the link that we provide you in the description of this program. So there you go. Tomorrow on the big show, supernatural news. And then tomorrow I will reveal the person that's on Thursday.
Are you going to tease it?
I don't know if I should. Should I? Think I should?
I don't know. I like it when you tease it. And then I knew who it was going to be last week when you said they were going to teach us about intuition. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be Jody, and I love her.
You did, huh?
I knew it.
You knew it, huh? Okay, let me see here.
So give us a tease. We'll see if I can guess it this time.
Okay. Thursday's show is a former guest who's been with us in the past. And I will tell you this much. We'll be talking about the world of magic. Both famous magicians and some that are a bit darker.
I've got my thinking cap on.
But this man is fascinating, very intelligent, and is linked to one of the more darker magicians in the history of dark magic. That's Thursday on this program.
I can't wait.
It'll be a fascinating program. Yeah. And he has a brand new book out. Oh, I give you a heel. Damn it. Okay, so you have a bit of
It's a boy.
It's a boy. So yeah, that's your hint for this week.
All right. I'm gonna see if I can figure it out. I'm gonna sit over here and get in touch with my intuition. I'll let you know what I think. I'll text you.
There you go. There you go. So that is Thursday's program. And boy, oh man. And then the week after that, Jess, I'm telling you, the hits just keep coming in October. Better and better and better and better. This month is amazing. It's an amazing month for Darkness Radio. So
every month's amazing, Tim.
Telling you. But we're getting into the world of monsters.
Ooh, my favorite.
Yeah. So I mean, we did with you too, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah. Dive a little deeper. Keep on diving.
That's right. So it's going to be a good month. So that'll do it for today. For Jessica Freeburg, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for joining us for True Crime Tuesday. Tomorrow, supernatural news right here on the best in true crime and paranormal podcasting. You've been listening and watching Darkness Radio.
For more audio and video archives of True Crime Tuesday, please visit darknessradioshow.com. Thank you for watching.